Greetings and salutations. So like over a year ago, I made a like recap style YouTube video. Hello, Percy. Percy wants to be in the video of one of my favorite bad, but like I will defend it with my life. It's so good. Television shows Smash. The video didn't like do great, but I loved it. And I wrote a script for season 2 at the time and then didn't film it, but I'm making it now. Welcome. This is a recap of Smash Season 2 by me, Ashlee Tayla. Nice to meet you. So we are back for Season 2, baby, but we have changed showrunners this season. So Joshua Saffron is taking over from show creator Teresa Rebeck, who was also showrunner for Season 1. So we open with a musical number, of course. This time we're opening with Cut Print Moving On, which begins with us all seeing how the closing night of the Boston run is going. And then we see like a montage just catching us up on where every character is up to. Ivy and Karen are clearly not speaking. Karen has continued the role of Marilyn throughout the entire Boston run, and people love her seemingly. Karen moves in with a friend called Anna. I don't think we know her name yet, but her name is Anna. And she is played by Chris Rodriguez. And we see Karen like throw out a letter from Dev when she makes her way in, just signifying she's done with him. Cool, because I don't want to see more of that storyline. At the end of the montage, Karen and Ivy get into an elevator together on their first day back in New York rehearsing after the Boston run. But Karen steps in like first and then goes, "You can get the next one," and shuts the door on Ivy. I do love Ivy. I just like, I am an Ivy defender. No, everyone knows this about me, but it does make my blood boil because I just think, like, I get it, but don't be mean to her. Eileen says that she's trying to secure a Broadway theatre that week specifically, and that while she wants to renew the entire company's contracts, it will depend on any changes that the creative team may make. So she's not sure yet if she is able to renew everyone's contracts. Ivy worries that this means she specifically will be fired. Michael Swift, however, chooses not to renew his contract and gets out of the show, thank fucking God. Julia adamantly does not want to read any reviews of Bombshell, but we learn from Derek that critics have all been saying there was a significant problem with the book of Bombshell. Derek takes Karen to see a Broadway show with a huge Broadway star, Veronica Moore, who is played by Jennifer Hudson of Cats fame. Cats the movie fame. I'm kidding. They meet up with her after the show, and Veronica gives Karen some advice to just like protect the work, because if the work is good, no one can attack that, no matter what else is going on in your life. And then she walks out of stage door to like at least like 20 paparazzi, and they're all cheering for her in this huge flashing lights, and she put the sunglasses on, and she turns back to Karen, she goes, "This will be you in 6 months." And it's clearly the show trying to like signify that she's a huge star. Karen is on this rise to fame, to stardom. But what's funny to me is like, why would you not just make it like a bunch of fans waiting at stage door? Because that is a very normal thing, especially on Broadway. We are told that Veronica Moore is a huge Broadway sensation, not necessarily that she's like a huge movie star or anything. So why would so many paparazzi be at just like a random show of the movie? This isn't like opening night or anything. This is like just a random weekend performance, it seemingly. So like, why would there be that many paparazzi? I feel like even like when like Daniel Radcliffe was in Merrily, like that doesn't happen. Like on events, sure, but there weren't paparazzi every night at stage door for Sadie Sink when she was doing John Proctor. Like, I just feel like that doesn't happen. Anyway, Jerry wants to produce Bombshell again. He's trying to get a credit, but Eileen rejects his proposal, and she lets him know that she is booking the St. James Theatre for Bombshell. Eileen asks Karen to perform at a showcase that they're putting on to garner interest in Bombshell moving to Broadway, and Eileen's like, pick some girls to help you in the performance, to back you up. And Karen pointedly does not pick Ivy to be one of those girls. But then she learns anyway that Ivy's doing a performance of Smash. So it doesn't matter anyway. It turns out that Ivy specifically requested to sing at this little gala as a way to like ensure that she stays with the show, because she's very nervous about being fired, because she's overheard that other cast members are having contract renewal offers, and she hasn't heard from her agent about one yet. Julia tells Ivy that if she wants to stay with the show, the way to do that is to make things right with Karen and to apologize not just for what happened, but for why it happened. Karen goes to a bar to meet up with Derek, and we are introduced to one of our new main characters for season 2. Meet Jimmy, played by Jeremy fucking Jordan, Mr. Gatsby himself, Mr. Rightful whatever Zac Efron's character's name in Greatest Showman is himself. He's evidently hitting on Karen. That's the introduction we get to his character, but she shuts him down. She is kind of rude about it, to be fair. Karen then asks Derek to fire Ivy, and Derek says, consider it done. Sam and Tom go out for a stroll, and Sam mentions to Tom that he got offered the role of the general in the Book of Mormon tour, and Tom encourages him to take it because it's a much bigger role than what he has in Bombshell, but Sam counters it by telling Tom that Tom needs to be brave and tell Julia that her book has been slammed in the reviews. So Tom says he'll tell her eventually, but right now she needs to focus on her marriage and her private life. But as he's saying all this, we see Frank, Julia's husband, talking closely with a woman while they're getting into a cab together. The woman, who is not Julia, Rebecca Duvall, remember her, Uma Thurman herself, releases a statement that the reason she left Bombshell was not due to illness, like was originally reported, but was actually due to sexual harassment by Derek Wills. Veronica says that she doesn't believe it, and she's going to talk to the producers of The Wiz, which is lined up to be Derek's next show, for him in his defense, so that hopefully he doesn't get fired from that project. So the little gala for Bombshell begins where they're planning to announce to the press the announcement of their Broadway transfer, including what theater they're moving to. And Frank arrives, and Linda, the iconic stagehand, tells him how glad she is him and Julia are working on their marriage, but Frank is horrified because he did not realize that people knew about this. So he asks if everyone knows that Julia was sleeping with Michael. And Julia's defense for this is, shows are like family. We all share everything. Everything begins to fall apart after this. The owner of the theater that Eileen booked pulls out because the Derek Wills news, presumably, and they won't answer Eileen on whether or not she still potentially has the space. Tom and Sam contemplate telling Julia about what they saw with Frank, but they're not sure what to do. To distract from the fact that they're missing an important figure, they get Ronnie to sing a song called On Broadway with Karen. And do not get me wrong, Catherine McPhee sounds amazing when they actually let her sing in this song, because she's basically back up for most of it. But she is so outshined by Jennifer Hudson in this number, it's kind of crazy. Derek pulls Karen aside after the song and tells him that she made him feel better and asks how she did that. And Karen goes, I'm your muse, it's what we do. The season really drives home how this uncomfortable muse thing with Karen and Derek that was briefly started last season. I hate it. They nearly kiss here, but Ivy walks in, so they don't. Derek officially lets Ivy go, and she knows it's because of Karen. She goes up to Karen and tells her that it was the right thing to do, that she understands that Karen hates her and she hates herself too for what she did. And she opens up about how low she got that night of Karen's first preview as Marilyn. And she admits that she almost nearly did something stupid, but that gave her perspective. And she says she's sorry that she ever got in Karen's way and wishes her luck and says that she deserves it. She doesn't, but whatever. This is a huge change of pace for Ivy, who usually plays the kind role with Karen only when she wants something, but she's genuinely very sincere here. Her attempt has really changed her perspective on life, seemingly. Tom tells Julia about seeing Frank with another woman. Julia confronts Frank, and Frank says that it's just a woman from school. Julia asks why he wouldn't just tell her that then, and Frank gets mad that she suspects him of something when she was the one who had the affair. So Frank begins yelling at Julia in front of absolutely everyone, saying that he didn't sleep with the woman, but he wanted to, a very Dev-like thing to say, and that maybe he should to even the score. Those are his exact words. Then he goes, or maybe I should just keep it in the cast so I can keep it in the family like you did. He doesn't just say like you did, he says like you did, Tom did, Derek did with every actress who put on a Marilyn wig. Obviously, saying this in front of everyone after the Rebecca Duvall story about sexual harassment just came out does not look good for Derek. However, this officially ends Julia's marriage to Frank. And she's crying to Tom about it, and she admits that she has read all of the reviews, and she read them all opening night, but she pretended that she didn't because she just didn't want to face that everything she's done with the past, recent time in her life has turned out so wrong. Karen goes to Eileen and tries to get Ivy hired back, but Derek cuts her off, telling Eileen that he needs her to make a statement in support of him, and Eileen refuses to do so. So she tells them all that Bombshell is under investigation and is currently frozen because someone, Jerry, tipped off the police about where the money to produce the show came from. Julia moves in with Tom while her home situation and her marriage is all tricky and in the air, and she doesn't know what's going on. And Tom decides to tell Sam to take the Book of Mormon tour, even though he knows that it will put an end to their relationship. Ivy begins auditioning for the ensemble for various shows again, and honestly, it's heartbreaking to see her fall from grace, but she handles it with such like elegance. I just love her. One of the casting people looks at her resume and goes, "You're in Bombshell. What a mess, huh?" And Ivy goes, "Actually, it was pretty great." And she's all wistful about it. It's so dramatic. I love it. I loved her. Ivy is noticeably like tuned down this season after everything that has gone down. But sometimes like my messy dramatic little girl shines through again and it warms my heart. I love Ivy Lynn. She is the character of all time for me. She sings Don't Dream It's Over and she sounds phenomenal. It of course turns into a montage of all the cast members handling the fallout of everything that's happened this episode and getting ready to gear up for the future of this season. Derek tells Karen to find something else for herself, something that hits her, and if she does, to give him a call because he might need a job. Karen goes back to the bar from earlier in the episode, the Jeremy Jordan one, but she shows up at closing, so they're trying to like kick her out. Jimmy flirts with her again, and then the other bartender, however, recognizes her from Bombshell and asks her to sign his playbill. He has a collection of playbills from failed musicals. I love him. This is Kyle, a sweet gay icon. Kyle is played by Andy Miantis, who is a human being I'm just utterly fascinated by. So he started a Spring Awakening like Facebook fan club reel, first of all, which gained a lot of traction, and because of the traction that it gained, he was asked to like make and moderate the official page for the musical for Spring Awakening. And then because of that and his connection to the show, he was brought in to audition and then booked the national tour. He reprised his role, I believe, in Death Spring Awakening, and it's transferred to Broadway as well, which is insane. He was also Marius in Les Mis on Broadway, and he was in the fucking 2012 off-Broadway Carrie cast. Like, he was also a really good Bach in a national tour of Wicked, like, pretty recently, I want to say. His career is really cool. I just love that, like, his foot in the door was just him utterly being a fan. I find that really fascinating. And the show that he was a huge fan of is the show that, like, you know, kind of got him his start in the industry. I think he's a really cool dude. Anyway, as Karen is walking out, she overhears Jimmy playing a song from his and Kyle's original musical that they're writing. This is genuinely one of my favorite songs of all time. It's called Broadway Here It Come. It's written by Joe Iconis of Be More Chill fame. And Karen is immediately taken with it, and she's incredibly moved, and she calls Derek to share the song with him. She, like, holds the phone up so he can hear it, and, like, obviously they're obsessed. It's Jeremy fucking Jordan singing one of the most moving songs ever written. It's fucking phenomenal. And that's how we start season 2, baby. Karen approaches Jimmy to discuss this musical that he's writing with Kyle, and Jimmy deflects by flirting with her again, but he flirts by fucking negging. He asks if she's always uptight and tells her that, like, if she stopped clenching her jaw like that, she could actually be cute. Yuck. Yuck, 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 yuck. He asks if she wants to hang out after a shift, but she denies it, and Kyle then tells Jimmy that they should let Karen help them because she's like kind of a big deal in the industry, but Jimmy still says no. Kyle, however, tells Karen to meet him later and he'll show her something. Eileen tells Derek and Tom that she went through everything and it's all in order, so they're not allowed to get back to work yet, but they're alive. This, like, Bombshell was not dead in the water. She asks them not to accept any other projects right now and tells them that Karen will be performing at a gala that night to just, like, in front of a bunch of industry people. Sam and Ivy are out for a stroll and they run into fucking Annalee Ashford reprising her role from the pilot episode. It is the greatest moment of my life. She tells them that she got out of the industry, she got out of theatre, and she's now thriving. She has a guest house and everything. She's making money. She's got a stable job, which plants a little seed in Ivy's mind. The Wiz does indeed fire Derek after 5 other dancers come forward and accuse Derek of sexual harassment, like joining Rebecca Duvall's statement and like kind of pairing with what was overheard by reporters about Derek sleeping with actresses in Bombshell at that party. Good, get him the fuck out of this industry. Julia is just distraught over everything that's happening and cannot get out of bed no matter how hard Tom tries to talk her into it. And he says he'll attend that gala that night alone and represent the both of them. Kyle and Karen meet up and Kyle shows her Jimmy's writing, which is all haphazardly written on like menus and just notes because apparently Jimmy doesn't write things down. Karen says she wants to work on something real, and this obviously isn't, so Kyle tells her that if she likes what Jimmy's written, to come round and she'll try to get Jimmy to let his guard down and play her some stuff. Derek truly ambushes one of the dancers who accused him of sexual harassment as she's leaving just like some kind of like sport. It looks like a Pilates class or something, and he tells her that she needs to rethink her definition of sexual harassment because he never touched her. She says that she didn't say he did, but he hit on her through 4 callbacks, and when she finally said she wouldn't sleep with him, she lost the job, which is textbook sexual harassment. Yeah. Derek says she didn't get the job because she wasn't a great actress, because he's a fucking piece of shit. And Derek says it can't be sexual harassment to simply ask women on dates. And she explains to him that he's in a position of power over these women. At his big fucking age, he hasn't seemed to realize this, which I call bullshit on. Ivy goes over to Tom's apartment to vent to him, but Julia answers the door instead because she's bedrotting. And Julia says she's thrilled to be of use to anyone, which it's funny because Tom begged her to go to this gala with him so they could, be a partnership there. And she said no. So just interesting to me. But Ivy tells her how she's been thinking of quitting the industry, and Julia tells her that she's been there, but something always comes along. Tom runs into a fellow creative on the street, and they're played by Harvey fucking Fierstein, and I think they're just playing themselves. Like, I think in universe that is Harvey Fierstein. I'm not sure though, but turns out there are rumors that Tom and Julia are splitting up as partners, and Tom promises Harvey that Julia will be at the gala that night, and we're with him, and they will even make a speech together. We're going to squash any rumors. Derek is getting drunk in the middle of the day at a bar, feeling sorry for himself, and of course, it's at Jimmy's bar. He tries hitting on a woman, and when her boyfriend shoves him to the floor, he enters this hallucination of a bunch of women he's sexually harassed singing "Would I Lie to You" to him, including Karen and Ivy. It's one of the craziest moments of this entire show to me. They're all in magenta pink fucking pumps, bright pink ones, and they have slicked back ponytails with red lipstick and these black bodycon dresses and what I'm sure is push-up bras, because the amount of cleavage in the scene is insane. And there's a moment where Karen just cups his crotch for way too long. It holds on it. It's really uncomfortable. Julia heard through the grapevine that her and Tom are giving a speech, and she gets all excited, clearly loving the American Theatre Wing, which is the venue that's hosting this event they're all going to. She's absolutely stoked, and she feels it's a beautiful gesture from the community. The only problem is they were not asked to give a speech, and they are not giving a speech. Karen gets her roommate to play the song that Kyle gave her while Bobby and Jessica are over hanging out, and they have the most on-the-nose conversation ever. Bobby literally goes, "It's Jonathan Larson good. Maybe they're writing the next Rent." Because, the season has a Rent riff-off musical that's a huge plot point, and they really, really want you to make sure that, that it's Rent. When Julia arrives at the gala, she goes straight up to Miriam, the owner of the theatre wing, and thanks her for thinking of them. Miriam is played by legend herself, Margot Martindale. Immediately, Julia is shut down, though, and informed that they were not asked to speak. It's really hard to watch. It's really embarrassing, but she looks hot, so there's that. Tom has the hard conversation with her that word on the street is she had a nervous breakdown on Bombshell, and he needs to find a new partner before his career is destroyed with hers. He tells her he doesn't want a new partner, but he does want his old one back. It's very harsh, honestly, but I don't think it's unfair. Eileen also shows up to this gala, and Miriam tells her that she thought she wasn't going to be in attendance because she has an integrity to protect. So she asks Eileen and her team to leave and says, "I'm so sorry, no one in New York will see what you lost everything for." Ouch. Eileen then decides to put in a performance before they leave to show them what they're missing, but Karen doesn't answer her phone, so they got Ivy to come and sing instead. Julia introduces the song, saying it's from Bombshell, which will be coming to Broadway that season, and then Ivy sings "They Just Keep Moving the Line," which is seriously one of the best songs ever, and Megan Hilty gives one of the best vocal performances ever in this song, truly. It should not be possible for one single person to sound this good on anything. She brings the house down, and then the team leaves. Karen takes Jessica and Anna to Jimmy and Kyle's place, and it turns out that they're having this huge party there. So she goes to say hi to Jimmy, and the two are immediately really flirty with each other, and they wind up chatting on the couch, and there's this really cringy scene where Karen goes, "You know what you are? A snob." And Jimmy says, "At least I'm not uptight." And Karen's comeback is, "Don't change the subject. You heard me. Snob. Deal with it." It gets worse when they start talking about his piano in his apartment, and Karen says she sings when she's in the mood to, and Jimmy asks how he'll know when she's in the mood, and Karen says, "It'll be very obvious. I'll have to look around to figure out the vibe, then I might stand up and stretch, and then I might just finish my drink, and then sing a song." And she does this all as she narrates it, she's doing it all literally. And then she starts fucking singing Jimmy's own song, a cappella to him mere centimeters away from his face while she's practically on his lap. It is literally my worst nightmare. I hate this scene so much. Anna then joins in on the piano and Karen stands up normally and starts singing like with the piano, and it's less awful. I do actually love the song. It's called Caught in the Storm. It's written by Pasek and Paul. Like, yes, that Pasek and Paul. Everyone at the party is super into the song except Jimmy. He storms out, super mad at Kyle for sharing his work. Kyle follows him out. Jimmy immediately threatens Kyle with violence over it, which is insanely too much to be doing. And Kyle explains that he just showed Karen a song. He didn't know she was going to be doing all that. Karen also goes after them, like saying she didn't think he'd get mad about it. And Jimmy tells her to stay out of it, princess, which is rude. And I'm not defending that use of language, but I do think he has every right to be mad at Karen. Karen says she just thinks he's talented and she wants to help. But I'm so sorry, but Catherine McPhee's acting here is like really bad. Jimmy says that if she and Kyle want to write a musical together, that's fine, but to leave his work alone, which is fair and his call. And then Jimmy tells Karen that her and her friends should leave, and Kyle walks off with them. Derek, drunk off his ass, shows up on Ivy's doorstep because he can simply never leave this poor woman alone. And he says that even though he knows that he is an ass and that their relationship ended badly, he asks if Ivy thinks he's a monster. And Ivy tells him that he should go talk to Karen instead, which he should. She talks about how she honestly doesn't know what's going on with anyone anymore, and she's thinking of just quitting the industry. Derek tells her, in like the one kind thing he ever says, that she's far too talented to be that stupid and to quit the industry. And he tells her that she's a singular talent and that she's far better than him, which is true. Then she tells him that she doesn't think he's a monster, and he goes to kiss her because he can't read any social scenario. He just thinks every woman wants to sleep with him ever. I hate him so much. But Ivy denies him. Thank God. Eileen sees Jerry the next day and she tells him that they are now legally allowed to continue work on the show. And Jerry notes that, well, you have no money now. But Eileen tells him that her lawyer will draft Jerry up a contract. Great. Kyle confronts Jimmy about the fact that Kyle is kind of like always just doing everything for Jimmy, cleaning up all his messes. And Jimmy finally like had this chance to help Kyle out in the way of like making Kyle's dream come true, and Jimmy immediately shut it down for purely selfish reasons, because it's not just Jimmy's songs that are the work, it's also Kyle's work, because he's written the entire book and this is literally everything he's ever wanted. Julia apologizes to Tom for everything. It's very sweet. They're on good terms. Everything's cool again between them. And she's excited to work with him again and to work on Bombshell again in a large capacity. Tom tells her that in the spirit of honesty, it is time for Julia to retire her scarves. I disagree. That Julia's like whole thing. Jimmy shows up at Karen's door and gives her a USB with everything that he's written so far for the musical. And Jimmy tells her that the only reason he's doing it is because he owes it to Kyle. Karen tells him that she thinks it's going to be really great. I hate that Jimmy is still like, I'm only doing this for someone else, but like at least he's doing it for someone else. Ivy goes over to Derek's to thank him for what he said the night before, and Karen is there already. It's very tense, and it feels like an ending to what could have been like a rekindling of something between Ivy and Derek. And I'm going to be so for real, I'm just very relieved that we're not rekindling anything between Ivy and Derek. Episode 3 begins, you guessed it, with a fantasy sequence of a song, this time from Hit List. Karen is in like ripped jeans and this little like crop tank top, and she has fake Clifford pink highlights, and it's so bad. It's very 2013, but it's horrendous. She's also crowd surfing. The song is good though, so they get some points for that, I guess. Karen is fantasizing about it while showing Derek more of Jimmy and Kyle's work, and Derek is like, yeah, it's a great song. I'd buy this album, but this isn't a musical, which, to be fair, that is how I feel about most Hitler songs. They are the pinnacle of musical theatre songs that are written for radio play. I'm looking at you, The Greatest Showman. Karen asked Derek to meet with Jimmy and Kyle so they can talk about their vision for the show, despite the fact that they're still working on the book. And Derek doesn't want to jump on board to a new project when it is in such early stages. They don't even have like a finished draft yet. He agrees to meet with them for Karen as a favor to her. Karen tells Jimmy and Kyle that Derek wants a meeting with them the following evening, and it makes Kyle and Jimmy like freak out and desperately try to work on like all of it, get everything they have on paper together. But Jimmy realizes that they're missing a bunch of pages, and it's at some mysterious figure's house. Oh no. Aileen tells Tom and Julia that she wants them to work with Peter Gilman, who is a dramaturg, to work on the book for Bombshell. They're not keen at all on the idea of a dramaturg in general, but Aileen just says, you have to have a meeting. Thank you. And when they get to that meeting, Julia has a line that says she looked him up on IMDb. And I'm not sure if that implies that in universe they don't have IMDb, or if that's implying that Julia doesn't know the name of it. But it's weird and it's jarring. Peter shows up to the meeting and he's not only good looking, but he speaks very respectfully. He's very familiar with Tom and Julia's work, and he understands that Bombshell is their baby and they're very protective of it, but he just wants to help it along. He says he has some thoughts, but he thinks there's already a very strong foundation there. And he provides them with a list of writers he's worked with who recommend him, and it's all creators of very successful shows that Julia and Tom didn't know had a dramaturg, because Peter didn't ask for credit on any of them. Peter tells Julia that as it stands, Bombshell is more of a biopic than a Broadway show. All the character development is in these songs, and the book is just really lacking. Julia is obviously pretty offended by that, and she leaves in a huff, and she says the words, "North Korea is more collaborative." Julia. She tries to talk to Aileen about just not wanting to work with him though, and Aileen tells Julia that Peter has already pitched his idea on Bombshell, and he pitched it back in Boston, and Aileen loves it. So if Julia wants to stay on as a writer, she has to work with Peter. Ivy auditions for the new Broadway revival of Dangerous Liaisons and asks if she can read for Cecile too, because she's just originally auditioning to be in the ensemble, but they give her the audition. Derek meets up with Ronnie, asking her to try to see if she can get the producers to rethink him as director for The Wiz, because you know, he got fired for all the sexual harassment claim. And Ronnie agrees because she really likes Derek's vision for the show. Okay. Bombshell rehearsals start up again, and Derek offers for Ronnie to bring the Wiz producers to a showcase of Bombshell that they're putting on the following day. They rehearse, they just keep moving the line. There's a fade to Tom watching a recording of Ivy performing it at like the first Bombshell workshop in his apartment, because he's just an Ivy stan. He's so me. Ivy tells Tom that she got an audition for Cecile, and he helps her work on it, and he immediately is like, no, this is a perfect role for you. I can see exactly how you can play this, and he sees all of the talent and drive that she has inside of her. So Tom helps Ivy find a way to connect more to the role by pointing out that Cecile is easily manipulated, until she learns how to fight back against the men who have taken advantage of her. So he draws a little parallels between Cecile and Ivy, and also Cecile and Marilyn. Ivy reaches out to Derek and asks for a favor, and for some reason Derek's like, yeah, come see me at the rehearsal space for this favor. So he then asks her to sit and watch Karen perform so that Ivy can give Karen tips on how to perform the song, because Ivy obviously is the reason Derek's direction on Bombshell is so good, and it's true. Karen's obviously a little weirded out by this, and while Ivy is watching, it turns into another fantasy number, because of fucking course it does. She sings Dancing on My Own, and she's singing about like losing her love, the role of Marilyn. She sounds fucking great on it, but the show does try to frame it as her like partially singing it to Derek. I simply disagree and reject that. You don't understand Ivy Lynn like I do. Julia talks to Peter the dramaturg about what specific changes he wants to make to the book if she has to work with him, and he tells her that centering the story around DiMaggio and the domestication of Marilyn is a mistake. Julie says that telling the story of Marilyn struggling to find balance with her home life and her career is relatable to most women, and since women buy the majority of the tickets to Broadway and a musical theatre's main demographic, it's a good core for the story to tap into. And then Peter says maybe Julia focused so much on DiMaggio because she was having an affair with the actor playing him. He then says that the story is lacking sex, considering it's about America's greatest sex symbol and her relationship. Jimmy goes to the location with he who shall not be named, we don't know as an audience, and he gets the pages for the show for Kyle, and then he shows up late to dinner with a busted lip. Kyle reprimands him for going to this place that we don't know, but Jimmy knows how much it means to Kyle and says like, I'm not sorry I went, no regrets. Derek keeps Karen late for rehearsal though, and she calls them and has to cancel and say that Derek's not coming and she can't make it either. The next day in rehearsal, Julia and Tom show up and insist that they're going to rehearse this new number they spent all night working on at the request of Peter the Dramaturg. It's a scene between Marilyn and JFK leading into the first time they sleep with each other. Karen notes that this is not going to be a good song to have the Wiz producers see. The Wiz producers who are coming today to see what Derek is working on, to see that he's still okay to work with after being accused by a lot of people of sexual harassment, but Derek's outvoted and they work on it anyway. So we see the song fully staged in everyone's minds. And I must say, they have Marilyn and the ugliest like dress and jacket combo. From memory, when we see this scene in like Bombshell later down the line, it's in a different costume and a much better one, thank God. It is not as bad when she takes the jacket off, but it's so ugly. And I really love most of Marilyn's costuming and the musical numbers, but like this is horrendous to me. Jimmy, however, storms the rehearsal at the end of the number and he starts just like loudly applauding. He introduces himself as Jimmy Collins and Derek doesn't remember the name at all, which causes Jimmy to storm out and be dramatic. The producers of The Wiz who are there aren't sold on Derek at all, but Eileen loves the new number. Karen runs after Jimmy outside of the theatre and there's a shot of her with the wig in her hand. Her hair is perfectly curled underneath, all voluminous and beautiful, and it's as if like she just like pulled the wig off and that's how her hair was. And this show just wants you to think that like wig caps, pin curls, pins, anything of the sort just don't exist, and it bothers me. But Jimmy tells Karen that if she's not going to commit and actually make their musical happen, she needs to tell Kyle because it's just screwing with his head and getting all of his hopes up. Ivy officially got the role of Cecile. She's going to be a featured actress on Broadway, what she fucking deserves. And Ivy tells Tom that it's all thanks to him and his help, and she tells him that she thinks he would be a really good director, that he's able to find actors like artistic intention and is able to bring it out of them without torturing them. And that's true, but it also sounds like the bar for directors in Ivy's mind is on the fucking floor. Derek Wills, I will kill you with my bare hands. Derek runs into Ronnie after rehearsals and Ronnie asks him to direct a one-night-only concert show for her so that she can distance herself from the innocent Broadway baby persona that she's been, stuck with. And Derek then makes his way over to Jimmy and Kyle's apartment and they finally have their meeting about Hit List. Jimmy is still not happy with Derek, but he opens up when he realizes that Derek and Karen did keep their word and they do seemingly want to hear about the show and are interested in it. Jimmy and Kyle pitch him the story of this down on his luck kid who feels like the world is against him, who has this hit list of songs about the people who have wronged him, and how he meets this girl who is rich and beautiful but wants nothing to do with him until she hears his songs. But then she leaves and he has no idea what happened to her until one day he hears his songs on the radio. She has stolen all of his songs and gotten famous off of them, but eventually she needs more because she's addicted to money and fame. And he just gives them to her because he loves her. And then they just say it gets dark at the end. It's not a very complicated story, but I do think it would have done very well, at least in 2013, and Derek likes it. Next episode of Veronica's one night only concert is in rehearsals. We see her rehearsing her signature song, which Derek tells her won't help change her image, and Veronica's mum, Cynthia, who was played by Cheryl Lee Ralph, aka Tony-nominated icon from Abbott Elementary, Cheryl Lee fucking Ralph, argues with him about that. The show is down a dancer after a dancer quits because her boyfriend refuses to let her work with Derek. And I am not here for controlling boyfriends, especially when it comes to like controlling a partner's career, but telling your girlfriend not to work with a known predator, especially when you're a dancer and he's specifically been investigated for sexually harassing dancers, kind of a win, kind of a king. I stand that, actually. But we also learned that Derek has hired Tom to write a new song for Veronica to help define the new version of herself that she wants the public to see. Peter the dramaturg asks Julia to come and speak in front of this like acting class he runs, and despite her known disdain for acting classes, Julia seems really thrilled about it. She wants to go brag and talk about her work, and when she tells Tom about it, she says, "We're going to go right back to working the book after class." And Tom questions the fact that she's now referring to her and Peter as a we when him and Julia have been a we, they're partners their entire career. But when Julia shows up to this class, she is not there to speak. She is there to watch the students perform her book. Peter assures Julia that they don't know who wrote it and they don't know what it's about. Everything's been changed, but it's just about her seeing her own work and seeing what works and what doesn't. Kyle and Jimmy are searching for a venue to host a little concert they're putting up with material from Hit List, but they're not having any luck because venues are all asking if Derek Wills is directing the concert because he's involved with this, but Derek is refusing to direct as such a small thing. Jimmy isn't happy with the level of help that Derek is providing, but Kyle argues that no, him telling them what to do while they're in development, the steps to take and to try out the material and shop it around and all of that, that is providing good help. Eileen, during all of this, is getting deposed about the criminal funds that Bombshell has been using, and Jerry tells her not to worry about it because the lawyer's a friend. You understand, she was vulnerable and she didn't know where the money was coming from. But Eileen doesn't appreciate that narrative, and Jerry tells her they don't care about you. They only care about taking down Nick. As long as he's out of town, they can't pin it all on him. Ivy shows up to replace the dancer who pulled out because she's an angel and will do it at a minute's notice and crush it because she's the most talented woman in this entire fucking show. But it turns out that Ivy and Ronnie know each other because Ivy was in an ensemble of Little Shop where Ronnie was Audrey, and I would actually saw off my foot to see that production. Karen overhears through the grapevine that this concert needs some new material, and Karen invites Jimmy and Kyle to just pitch some of their work to Tom, who's musical director of the concert, to see if any of that would work for the show. And Derek announces that the concert is being filmed for Bravo, so Karen tells Jimmy and Kyle that if they get their song in the show, they'll not only be recognized for it, they could get famous because it's being, televised. They play Tom a bunch of songs that Jimmy has in his catalogue, and Tom compliments them and says they're all great songs, but they're not fitting the image that Ronnie and Derek are trying to build with this concert. So they offer to write something new that fits Derek's image and is Broadway enough for Ronnie while still feeling like their own work. And Tom says, look, if you can do it by the end of rehearsal tonight, so I have time to arrange it, then yeah, the slot is yours, you can write the song. We cut back to the acting class discussing Julia's work, and Julia accidentally lets it slip that it's about Marilyn, and the students argue that it's clearly meant to be a story about a strong woman, but it's just a story of her being totally defined by all the men in her life instead. Julia's really offended by this, and she storms out, of course, and she buys Peter's one solo written play and reads it to see how good can this guy's work actually be. Jimmy is struggling to write a song for somebody else, and Karen gives him space so that he can work peacefully, but she also gives the great advice that he should write something for himself. Such good advice, Karen. No one has ever thought of that before. Thank you so much. Ivy and Ronnie have lunch together, and Ronnie complains about working with Derek because he's a fucking tyrant, and she asks how Ivy ever dated him, and Ivy goes, he's a genius, I can't resist that. Girl, yeah, sure, but geniuses can also be nice to you. Ivy tells her that Derek will make your life a living hell, literally torture you, be awful to you, but then you'll give the performance of your life and it'll be worth it. And I have to disagree with her there because that sounds like Stockholm Syndrome to me, Lynn. You literally nearly died while working with this man. They then rehearse a sexy number, and Veronica starts laughing. She's clearly very uncomfortable with it, and then Derek starts berating her in front of everyone until Tom has to step in. And Cynthia, Ronnie's mother, steps in and talks to Derek about how he's talking to her daughter and what subject matter he's having her perform. And she says that if he doesn't get his act together, she'll replace him with Tom. Derek's oh, okay, do it. But then Cynthia's okay, how will it look for your career if you're fired for pushing Ronnie in a sexual direction she's not comfortable with? Eileen sees Nick in secret, who says that he's going to turn himself in because he can't keep running and he can't keep seeing Eileen's career in jeopardy because of him. Derek decides to just scrap the idea of a fresh take on Ronnie as an artist and just let her sing whatever she wants and whatever her mum wants her to sing. But in turn, this means they don't have the slot for a new song anymore, and Derek tells Jimmy, who is very upset about that, obviously, and Jimmy tries to demand that Derek has the decency to at least listen to the song that they wrote, and I think that's fair. He is screaming it at Derek, which isn't the right way to go about this. So Derek then tells him that, but no one's owed anything in this industry. They work hard and they wait their turn, and it's not fair. And that if that's how Jimmy reacts when he doesn't get his way, then it's unlikely hit list will ever happen. Karen tries to step in, but Derek goes, oh, it's all right, darling. He's just showing off for you. I hate Derek Wills. Karen calls the next day to check on Jimmy, but learns from Kyle that Jimmy has been missing all night. Apparently, he does this whenever his trigger gets set off. Julia tells Peter that his play was terrible, and Peter's yeah, I know, I am a terrible writer, but I am a good teacher. Julia eventually relents and says she does really want Bombshell to work. She wants it to be incredible, but she doesn't know how to go about making it better. She admits that she is far better at writing the men around Marilyn, even though Marilyn is who she's captivated by. And she decides that every scene should be from a man's voice, and the show should be about how the men see her rather than necessarily about who Marilyn actually is. Make the artistic choice to have the men speak for her. In Veronica's dressing room, Veronica's mother tells her that she needs to focus on all of the career opportunities that are coming her way. Ronnie's like, I actually wanted to hang out with the ensemble after the show, and she's like, no, even if you want to, you cannot do that. Think of your career. Veronica argues with her, obviously, saying like, I'm not the little girl everyone thinks I am. And her mother tells her that regardless, you have to play to your strengths. It's very manipulative. She holds her support of Ronnie over her head, and it's gross. But Ronnie at least seems like she is aware of that and seems very unhappy with it. Tom tells Derek that Jimmy is the real deal and Derek should have listened to the song. Tom is the only fucking kind, level-headed person in this entire show. Karen goes looking for Jimmy. I don't really fucking care what's happening here, but they find him very not sober outside the theater, and he says that sometimes things don't make sense, and he's tired of letting everyone down all the time. And then Karen's like, okay, you should just go lay down, I'll get you some water. And he's like, I don't want to go in there, I don't want everyone to see what a mess I am. And Karen's like, actually, if you go in, it'll show that you can handle rejection and they might respect you for that. Jimmy's like, I actually was just here for you. And then he kisses Karen. She kisses him back and she's like, we should try that when you're not high. I don't care about this storyline. I don't care about that relationship. Veronica's mother doesn't like the dress that Veronica chose herself to wear for the concert, and she's like, Derek's influence again. But Veronica's like, I picked this is my decision, and actually I really like the work I've done with Derek, and I want you to like the work I've done with Derek. Then the concert begins. Jimmy sits down with Kyle in the audience and apologizes to him, thank God. To everyone's shock, Veronica sings Jimmy and Kyle's one, but then she invites them both on stage to credit them, which is really, really cool. Nick did turn himself into the authorities, but Eileen spoke out in his favor anyway during her questioning thing, and as a result, Bombshell is free to continue their work, but Eileen legally has to step down as a producer. So she tells the team that Jerry is taking over. They're obviously really unhappy about this because Jerry sucks, but they allow it because it will allow them to keep doing the work. And in the last scene of the episode, we see that Jerry was working with fucking Ellis to take down Nick. He tells Ellis never to contact him again, and I think that is the last time we ever see Ellis on this fucking show. These videos are really hard to film because I have to speak a lot and I get tired. So, new day. If I look like shit, I've just gone back from seeing Wicked for Good, so sorry if I look like I've been sobbing. I have. Also, very sorry if you can hear the very loud buskers that are outside my apartment. That's a fun little development that's happening right now, but you know what, I'm on a schedule, so we've got to hope for the best. Episode 5. Bombshell has booked a theater. Its home is officially now the Belasco, which I think they did genuinely film inside of, at least temporarily, and I just will forever be shocked at how small Broadway theaters actually are. I'm obviously from Australia, so what I consider big professional theaters in Australia are usually quite a bit larger than what I consider a small professional theater in Australia is almost always still bigger than most Broadway stages. It's insane. Broadway theaters I just always assumed were so much bigger and seated so many more people than they do. Anyway, Tom and Derek go to look at the place, and Tom immediately starts trying to visualize if this new idea him and Julia came up with would fit in the theater. And that leads us into another fantasy number. We see public relations, which is one of my favorites, and it's Marilyn landing a private jet and answering a bunch of reporter questions, but they're wondering if they can have a jet be in the theater, basically. Think Miss Saigon. Julia and Peter, the dramaturg, arrive late, and it becomes very clear that Tom and Derek have been just kept out of the loop from the new drafts of the show, to the point that Tom doesn't even know if public relations is still in the current script that they're workshopping. Derek's like, I don't care as long as you have a book done for us for the reading later today. And Julia is like, I swear I do. Turns out, shocker, that after Karen and Jimmy kissed while he was very inebriated, that Karen has not heard from Jimmy at all the past week after that incident, despite the fact that she says it's all she's thinking about. Girl, I've been there. Run. Derek calls Karen to let her know that he has convinced his friend who runs the Winter Fringe, I guess he's just very high up on the board there, or entirely owns it. I don't know how American Fringe works. I don't think any one person usually owns Fringe or runs it, but whatever. I'll go with it. And they've decided to give Hit List a slot, so they can throw up whatever they have and just see how it plays to an audience. We then see Ivy in rehearsal for Dangerous Liaisons. Every woman there, including Megan Hilty, especially Megan Hilty, are in these like gorgeous corset dresses. And I want one. They're so beautiful. We learn that the reason Dangerous Liaisons is getting a revival in the first place is because it has some big movie star attached to star in it. His name is Terry Bowes. We love stunt casting. But after missing a week of rehearsals initially, he's finally arriving to join the rest of the cast. Ivy is uncharacteristically fine about both the stunt casting and him missing a week of rehearsals before he shows up. Terry Bowes is an actor who is primarily known for comedy and for his comedic acting, so Dangerous Liaisons is quite a serious drama, and so the entire cast is like, weird casting choice. He's played by Sean Hay, so I believe is an alum from Will and Grace, along with Deborah Messing. They throw him like right in with they don't direct him at all. They just go start the scene, and they don't even introduce individual cast members to him, which is a setup for failure. But regardless of that, he bombs. He's really, really bad. He's playing it like he's a toddler trying to be funny. None of it's working. It's not working in a comedic sense, and it's not working, obviously, in any way that it is written in the text. Tom attempts to have lunch with Julia, but Julia's like, I'm having lunch with Leo instead, and this is the first mention of Leo in a lot of episodes. But then she ends up having to meet up with Peter again instead, and Tom understandably seems insecure and upset that Peter is seemingly replacing him as Julia's partner, but apparently Peter was just running from an ex he spotted. The ex then spots Julia, and he says that a writer friend of his, the ex's writer friend, had worked with Peter, and just like apparently Peter had just sabotaged their work. Karen goes over to Kyle and Jimmy's apartment to let them know about their Fringe slot, and she lets them know that Derek is keen to direct it as well, which is exciting, and she wants to ask if they're interested in staging a read-through of Hit List that afternoon to just see what they have. While they're talking, a woman who Jimmy has very clearly had sex with emerges from his bedroom looking for coffee, and it's really awkward. It's really awkward. Karen, take it from my personal experience. If someone kisses you then pretends it never happened, run. It's never going to go well. Anna then tells Karen that if she wants to keep working on Hit List, she needs to just set a bunch of boundaries with Jimmy, that it has to be entirely professional because she has these feelings for Jimmy and it's already gotten messy. So yeah, boundaries need to be in place. It needs to be entirely professional. Finally, someone with a brain cell. Ivy has lunch with Tom, and she vents to him about Terry's immature performance, and Tom explains to her that the reason he's probably performing it that way is it's probably under the impression that comedy is what everyone expects from him, and so that would probably be why he was hired, and everyone around him actually working on the show was just too afraid to tell him the truth because he's a big movie star. He's going to be bringing in a lot of money. Julia vents to Tom about her fears around Peter. Tom points out that Peter necessarily doesn't have a great track record with telling the truth or being upfront for his plans with Bombshell, so they decide to talk to Jerry about it for some reason. But when they go to talk to Jerry, he's not in. His assistant is there, however, and she gushes to them about how she just read the script and she absolutely loves it. So Julia's a little bit suspicious about this, and so she asks if she liked the Liz Taylor sequence, and the assistant says she loved it. Julia took the Liz Taylor sequence out of the final script, but Peter wanted to keep it in, meaning what Jerry's assistant has read isn't what Julia wants to be the final script, and even the title has been changed. Ivy in this episode is wearing this adorable black and white polka dress with a cream cardigan and like nude pumps and these little braids in her hair, and I am just obsessed with it. There's no plot relevance to this. I really love it. I'm obsessed with how Ivy dresses in both seasons. If anyone knows how to go about like finding similar clothes to what Ivy Lynn wears, please direct me in that direction. Ivy gently confronts Terry and tells him that the show is a drama, and while it is witty, it's not an out-and-out comedy. It's not intended to be funny. And he seemingly takes the comment really well, and he thanks her for being honest and being brave enough to tell him the truth. But in rehearsal, it turns out to Ivy's horror, Terry talked to the director about wanting the show to feel more cohesive, and as a result, everyone has to match his energy while instead of him matching everyone else's. When Ivy gets up to rehearse her big number though, she refuses to get in. She reads it as the text was intended and she's fucking phenomenal. Megan Hilty did not fuck around with this number, but she's so good that Terry gets humiliated and runs out. Julia confronts Peter, but Peter doesn't know what she's talking about, and the other writer Julia heard about him sabotaging was an alcoholic who he wrote for only because she was incapable of writing it herself, or so he says. Julia lets the reading go ahead anyway, even though she doesn't know what to believe and she doesn't know what fucking script they're going to be reading. The hit list read-through takes place and it's not great. All of the actors who came for the read-through quickly excuse themselves and leave before they try to ask for feedback, but they're not quite quick enough at actually getting out the door. They're made to sit back down again. Bobby then tells Kyle that the concept is really cool, but the dialogue and characters are just lacking. Jessica tries to be gentle about it, but when Kyle gets defensive, Bobby flat out tells him it's not good. Kyle is understandably upset about this. He lashes out, which isn't cool, but he was just told his passion project for many years sucks, so like I kind of understand having a bit of an emotional outburst. Jimmy, Karen, and Anna all encourage Kyle that lots of shows get better as they run along. The examples they use are Rent and Next to Normal. We get it, Smash Writers. Kyle says he wishes the whole show was Jimmy's songs, and Karen points out that Rent originated with a book, but in its final form, it was a sung-through show. Again, we get it, Smash Writers. They decide that Hit List could be sung through, and after a nudge from Anna, Jimmy apologizes for kissing Karen at Ronnie's concert. He says that he just usually doesn't like a lot of people, but he didn't know Karen's situation, and he shouldn't have kissed her, especially now that they're working together. Karen leaves, and we learn that Jimmy thinks she's dating Derek. The bombshell read-through is so fantastic it leaves everyone speechless. Peter wasn't sabotaging Julia, they did amazing work together. Derek calls Karen and tells her they need to focus on Bombshell because they'll win her every award in town, obviously putting Karen in an exceedingly uncomfortable position right after Derek set himself up as the director for the fringe slot for Jimmy and Kyle, and obviously Karen is also involved in that to some capacity. Derek Wells! Ivy, again in a kind of uncharacteristic moment for her, tracks down Terry to check in on him. She obviously still stood up for herself and made the work good, but season 1 Ivy would have hated this man for potentially ruining her Broadway featured role, and she would not be caring for him so gently at all. I know she's meant to have grown so much after what happened in Boston, but like, come on. She should at least still be a little bit of a bitch in my opinion. Terry asks her how Ivy captivated a whole room of people with just her voice and talent without any gimmicks. And Ivy tells him to feel his fear of the work and do the work how it was originally written. But the next day, in order to lean into his fear, Terry goes off all his meds. All of them. Apparently he was on quite a few of them. He goes off them all. Yay! Eileen visits Nick in jail, who tells her that they're moving him upstate and he doesn't want her waiting for him. So that's just the end of that storyline, I guess. Karen talks to Kyle, who is very heartbreaking about not realizing his own lack of talent for this thing that he loves so much, which is honestly so deeply relatable to me. It hits way too close to home for me as someone who grew up just dreaming of doing theater and wanting to be on Broadway, and I'm not a good performer. I'm really not a good singer. I'm not a good dancer. I'm not a good singer. I am a decent actor, and I think I am quite good at bringing characters to life, and I think that's why I'm a cosplayer now. But like the singing and the dancing aspect that is so integral to musical theater, I could never do, and that was a very hard thing for me to learn and realize that those dreams were something that simply would never happen for me. Jerry tells Julia that her new script is a masterpiece, an artistic triumph, but he's not going to produce it. He wants something that will make money, not something that critics will love. He's not going to fund the new version. He will produce the draft of the show from the workshop that Tom sent in good faith when Jerry came on as producer and asked to see the previous draft, and Jerry will do it with or without their involvement. Julia wants her and Tom to stand as a united front and say that the final draft is what they're both committed to, but Tom can't. He wants to tell the story of how Marilyn created herself, not the men that created Marilyn, which is what the final draft is. Derek says that Eileen will be the tiebreaker. Eileen sides with Jerry. They're making the old version of the show. Julia's script is rejected. In the next episode, things are tense in rehearsal. Julia is clearly mad that this piece of work she is so proud of is not going to be made, and Derek is mad that he won't get to direct it. Julia calls what they're making for tourists, not for art, which is probably true, but I do love a good popcorn musical. See my 2022 Frozen the Musical obsession for reference. Hit List arrives in their tiny bar theater for their fringe slot. Karen is helping them settle into the space before they go on stage and perform in 10 hours. And then when she has to leave for Bombshell rehearsal, Kyle acts like it's shitty of her to not have taken a night off Bombshell. But like, it's a Broadway show that only just got put back into rehearsal. It's not that simple. For some mild reason, Bombshell and Dangerous Liaisons are rehearsing in the same building. I know it's obviously not uncommon for multiple shows to be rehearsing in one building, but it just seems awfully convenient to have Bombshell and Liaisons to be in the same space, considering it was also Bombshell's workshop rehearsal space. This leads to Karen and Ivy sharing a tense elevator ride, and Ivy is once again way too nice to her. Not to be a bitch, but I miss Ivy being a bitch to Karen. She tells Karen how good everything is going, but when she steps off the elevator first, Karen hears the chaos of Terry, and Karen goes, "Have a good rehearsal," and it feels like she won the interaction, and I hate that. Turns out the few days that Terry has been off his med, he has been insanely productive. Learned French, got certified in archery, and been arrested. That's more than I've achieved in my lifetime of unmedicated ADHD, so good for you. Jerry thinks that there are too many songs in the show, but he loves the spectacle of public relations, so he does want to cut another song to have public relations be added in. He decides on cutting Never Give All the Heart. Julia, Tom, and Derek understandably argue back on that idea, and Eileen somehow sides with Jerry. Tom talks to Julia and asks if he can convince Jerry to put Never Give All the Heart back in the show, if she can try to find a way to be proud of the version of the show they're making, because she did still write it after all. Derek finds out Karen is still doing the Fringe show with Hit List and says he didn't think she'd do it without him, but she says they're just putting up the first act without a director and that she knew he couldn't go back to doing the Fringe anyway. Turns out there's a big article talking about the fact Karen is starring in Hit List, helping them sell out their first night, but Jerry says she can't do it because their marketing is focused all around introducing Karen Cartwright. Turns out Jerry has the right to approve any other work Karen does while she's in Bombshell, and if she wants to do Hit List, she has to leave Bombshell, and I fear that's probably not abnormal or unheard of in a Broadway script. In a Broadway what's the word? A contract. Karen tells Jimmy and Kyle that she can't do the show with only 6 hours notice before they're performing. They are very pissed, which I understand, but it's unfortunately not Karen's fault, and it's an insanely difficult spot for all of them to be in. I understand their frustration, even if it's slightly misplaced. Derek runs into Ivy after rehearsal and offers to have lunch with Ivy to hear her vent about liaisons and the current situation. He tells her to just ignore everything else that is happening and perform her role and her numbers the way that she knows they should be done, and then everyone will remember that she was great in an exceptionally bad show. He then talks to her about his own Bombshell struggles, and Ivy tells him that he will see Karen as Marilyn again and that it'll be okay. And I love Ivy's growth, but also sometimes just really want her to be a bitch again. Peter and Julia have dinner, and he tells her to leave Bombshell, considering what they're doing to her book and how she feels about it, and he asks her to come to London with him to continue working together. Julia says she can't leave Tom, but she is considering it. She's seriously considering it. While that's happening, Tom talks to Jerry, and Eileen begs them to put Never Give All the Heart back in the show. Eileen propositions Tom to change the song into something that wows them and is more upbeat so that it can stay in the show. He has 24 hours. Karen runs into Ellis's ex-girlfriend, who lets us know that Ellis is both a psychopath and gay. Not only that, but he had a job working for Jerry. Hit List finds an actor to replace Karen, and she's not good. Jimmy wants to cancel the second show after the first night doesn't go too well, but Kyle says they have a responsibility to the people who bought tickets, and he is correct. He says they'll do it without Jimmy if they need to, if Jimmy is having that much of a fucking fuss. Julia tells Tom she's thinking of going to London to work with Peter, and Tom is rightfully kind of annoyed at her. He is doing everything he can to save this sinking ship of their production and keep it as something they both love and can be proud of, but Julia is refusing to engage in any of it and wants to run away because she didn't get her way. It's so understandable that she is upset and she's mourning her baby, but she's essentially abandoning her collaborator in the midst of her misery. I don't know. Maybe I am too much of a Tom defender, but I don't love how quickly Julia is willing to just jump ship. Dangerous Liaisons has a press day. The director introduces the performances to the press as an almost finished product that experiments with tone. Everyone except Terry wants to die, evidently, but when it comes to Celine's big number, Ivy follows Derek's advice. She stops reining in her performance and leans into the comedy in her own way. The song really shows off Megan's soprano too, which is crazy good, and she cracks the entire room up. She's killing it. The press love her. Terry tells her he loved the number, but because Ivy was so much better than him, they're going to have to cut the number. And Ivy somehow doesn't destroy his life. Tom restages It's Never Give All the Heart, and Derek is annoyed that Tom is essentially just redirecting it. It becomes this upbeat instrumentation, and Karen is to walk through all these men and break their hearts as she moves through them. Tom wants the song to be empowering now. It saves the song, but it's an evident downgrade. Even Julia loves it somehow. I really don't like this restaging of it. Derek is mad that his opinion seemingly doesn't matter anymore and says the worst line of dialogue in the history of television to Tom. So just checking, how many Best Director Tonys have you got? Jerry tells Tom to keep working with Karen on the song, completely disregarding Derek as director. So Derek quits. He apologizes to Julia, saying he tried to make the show they wanted. He tells Jerry that he's what is wrong with American theatre. He tells Eileen she's classier and better than her producing partner. And he tells Tom that now he has a chance to direct the show. And then he walks out. Derek even tells Karen that she should find a way out of the show too. Karen tells Eileen what she heard about Jerry and Ellis working together, and Eileen tells her not to share that info with anyone else. Eileen meets up with Julia and Tom later and tells them that she has new dirt on Jerry and that they can use it to kick him out of the show and retake her rightful role as producer. Together they decide that Tom should direct the show. Julia says she'll be with him every step of the way. Tom agrees. Baby's direction will debut. Terry finds Ivy crying in the stairwell, and Ivy tells him that the show is awful and he's terrible in it. All her choices are wrong, the set is ridiculous, and the one thing that she was holding on to, her number, was cut because of him. She assumes that she's going to get fired for telling him that and being so blunt with him, but Terry once again genuinely appreciates her honesty. And in return, he gives her song back as long as she promises to keep telling him the truth and being real with him. Karen goes and shows up for the second performance of Hit List, but Jimmy told her it wasn't enough. He needs her to show up consistently if she's going to be in the show, which is fair. Karen says that he can be mad at her, but not to take it out on everyone else, and that is also fair. She says that this show reminds her why she loves performing. We see a mentally fully staged version of a song, of course, called Heart-Shaped Wreckage, and I fucking loved the song when I was younger. Karen, in this mental vision, is wearing this fucking horrendous wig with like bangs, painfully 2013 dress too, in front of this fucking giant neon Pepsi Cola sign. It's like Madam Web. It's crazy. Terry asks all of the cast and crew of Dangerous Liaisons to be brutally honest with him, and they finally all tell him how bad it is. They decide to make emergency changes before tech to try and save the show. After the Fringe performance of Hit List, Scott Nichols, the director of the Manhattan Theatre Workshop, approaches Jimmy and Kyle after the show, telling them it's the kind of project he loves to work on. Derek jumps on board to direct, and they lock Jimmy in to lead. But Karen has to decline because of Bombshell. Scott Nichols is played by fucking Jesse L. Martin, aka Tom fucking Collins from Rent, by the way. Next episode, Derek is not adjusting well to the Manhattan theatre lifestyle. No one to get his coffee, losing his rehearsal space to kids on an educational outreach program every now and then. He's not having a good time, but Hit List has a slot that season. They're going to put it on in their underground space. However, it is the space where they run new works that are more targeted at younger audiences. Derek and Jimmy aren't happy about this. Scott implies that if they change the show slightly to articulate their theme better, it could move to the above ground space. Also, Kyle tries to flirt with the lighting director by telling him he'll get coffee anytime, and it's terrible, and I love him. Jimmy is struggling to take direction, and he thinks the show's problem is not having Karen. We see Tom directing for the first time, and he's struggling to connect with Karen on the work. Karen is struggling to unlearn Derek's direction, and Tom is struggling to convey his vision to her. Tom has decided to hire a new choreographer because he is doubtful Derek will give them the permission to use his old choreography, and all of Julia's melancholy sadness is gone. She's clearly ecstatic to be working with Tom as director. We can see that there has been a huge shift in the Liaisons production. Everyone is willing to tell Terry no, and they all think the production's going to be better for it. But it turns out Terry is also not very good at playing the material as it was written, resulting in the musical being painfully boring and getting zero positive reception during previews. Derek invites Jimmy and Kyle to the opening night of Dangerous Liaisons. Meryl Streep's daughter, aka Eileen's daughter shows up again. Woo! Eileen tells her about all the issues with Jerry, but she doesn't want to let her daughter step in and intervene. Good parenting, I guess. But it turns out that getting Jerry out of the show is far more difficult than they thought. Eileen proposes for Julia and Tom to threaten to walk away from the show to try and force his hand after finding out that Jerry never even sent Derek the contract about using his choreography. Julia has some sense and rejects that plan. Karen is venting to Derek about Tom taking over as director and how she's getting confused with how to balance Tom's vision with Derek's. I know that certain actors work better with certain directors and that's just the business, but I also think if Karen was legitimately as good at her job as the show wants us to know, she wouldn't be struggling so much with having a new director come in and telling her exactly the tone he wants from her, who is also explaining Marilyn's scene-by-scene motivations to her. He is very much so babying her with his work. Derek tells her once again that she should have left with him and compares himself to Fosse because this show is not subtle. Kyle and Jimmy are struggling to incorporate the theme of the show more heavily, so Karen gets round with coffee to try and help them. Jimmy is snappy about Karen coming around after 3 weeks of absence to try and help when she's not even in the show. Weird way to try and manipulate her into rejoining the cast, my brother. Karen tells him that the theme they're searching for is already in the show. It's the idea of reinvention, of changing your destiny. I love Merida. Julia approaches Derek to bring the contract about the choreography to him and runs into Scott in the process. The two clearly know each other already and also clearly have some kind of a past. Derek antagonizes Julia. You want to come sit on my lap? Come here. Derek antagonizes Julia a little bit, pointing out that the version of the book that Julia felt was the best stuff of her career isn't even being used. Not even the stuff with Marilyn's mother that Derek knows Julia wanted so badly to keep. Tom shows up at Karen's apartment trying to make things right with her and trying to reconcile their relationship as actor and director. He tells her how much he wants to make it work and even asks her to be his date to Dangerous Liaisons opening later that evening. Once Tom guarantees that Ivy will be fine with this arrangement because Ivy and Tom are good friends, Karen agrees. Derek also invited Jimmy and Kyle to this opening, so it's a whole damn party. Terry reads reviews for Dangerous Liaisons and is upset that they're all calling him and the show meh. The only thing they seem to like is Ivy. Ivy tells him that she wishes she could just get out of the show. She fucking hates it. And he tells her that he hates her in it too because she's too good. And then Ivy convinces Terry to make the show chaotic again. Because if we're going to go down, we might as well go down in a blaze of glory. At the opening night, Tom and Karen try to field press questions together, but clearly both have very different views on both the show and Marilyn as a character. It's very painful. Karen chats with Derek and Jerry tries to convince Derek to come back to the show to work with Karen again. Tom sees them chatting and cuts them off, and there's this big petty fucking discussion about who was going to sit with who like it's fucking middle school. Derek tells Tom that he should listen to Julia and her brilliant work on Marilyn's mother, or listen to Karen, who was one of the brightest young actresses around. Sure, my guy, she can't take direction, but sure. Julia, Eileen, and Meryl Streep's daughter look through a bunch of old files and clippings from Jerry's things to try and find some silver bullet to take him down with. Julia finds a license from the Marilyn Monroe estate, allowing Eileen to use her early journals and poetry in the show, which Julia did use to write the show. Terry infuses Dangerous Liaisons with chaotic comedy once again, and it works. The audience are at least having fun. He kind of crosses a lot of boundaries with other actors, and it becomes uncomfortable. He's motorboating them and slapping them. It's way too much. It is fun though, I can't lie, and he ends the song falling from a decent height on a swing. One bump. At the stage door after the show, Tom and Karen tell Ivy that she was wonderful, and Karen watches how well Ivy and Tom connect on an actor-director level. Karen asks Tom if the show will close, and Tom says he'd think, which means Ivy would be free. So Karen quits the show. Ivy is his Marilyn. Tom says that she's a class act, and fucking finally, Karen. Ivy was always Marilyn, but she also gives up so easily, it drives me kind of nuts. Clearly she never actually wanted Bombshell that badly if she's going to just give up this role after, a week of rehearsals with a new director. Derek tells Jimmy and Kyle that he was never going to go back to Bombshell, but he will direct whatever version of Hit List they want to make, wherever it's going to play. Karen tells them that she's in too. She's quit Bombshell for them as long as they can let her out of her contract, and Jimmy is really smitten about it. Jerry, Eileen, Julia, and Meryl Streep's daughter, and Tom, all have dinner. Eileen confronts Jerry about the fact that he paid Ellis for information. Julia tells him that if he wants to use any of the songs that have lyrics developed from Marilyn's estate, in which an exclusive deal with Eileen was struck, the show will be shut down unless he signs the show over to Eileen. He refuses, and their daughter tells him she can't believe he would ever stoop so low, that he's hurt her and Eileen for the last time. This causes him to change his mind, which turns out was planned already. Harry has to leave the show after his accident, and his understudy will perform in his place for the week, but after that, Dangerous Liaisons will officially close, leaving Ivy free. Derek signs the contract allowing Bombshell and Tom to use all of his choreography, and he gives Tom his blessing. Tom tells Julia and Eileen that Ivy is free now, and they're both on board for her to come back as Marilyn. And the show is officially Eileen's to produce. Julia asks Tom if they can work the Marilyn's mother storyline into the show, and Tom agrees. Everything is coming up fucking roses. Hit List, for the directors of the Manhattan Theatre Workshop, debut a new opening number. It's called Rewrite the Story, and I've been obsessed with this song since 2013. I'm not fucking kidding. It has been in my Spotify Wrapped every single year I have had Spotify. I love this song. This song is the piece of work that really made me pay attention to Pasek and Paul years before they worked on pieces of art that would literally change and save my life. It's a banger opening song to a musical too, genuinely. Karen's costuming is atrocious with a white blazer, polka dot fucking sequin blouse, orange skirt and white belt, but the song itself slaps. Scott tells them that the main stage slot is theirs if they continue in this direction for the show. Derek introduces Jimmy and Karen as the leads to Scott and Anna, Karen's roommate, who had been filling in for the female lead, who thought they'd offer it to her. Like, she just overhears them say that Karen's going to be the lead from behind them, and it must suck. Anna then goes, "Is that it for me then?" And Kyle goes, "Not at all. You just go back to being the sister." The role she originally read for. Ouch. Jimmy invites Karen out for a drink afterwards, but Derek then tells Jimmy that he needs to understand that Derek and Karen have a history. And Jimmy jokes about the fact that Karen is Derek's muse, but Derek is serious and says when he's directing a show, he tends to focus on something or someone. And if Jimmy wants Derek at the top of his game, then he should focus on his work and Derek will focus on his own. Then he tells Karen in front of him that he's sending Kyle and Jimmy home with notes, so Jimmy can't go out with her, and he asks her out for a drink himself. It's so fucking gross. It is the first day of rehearsals for Hit List, and Jimmy and Derek are already clashing because they have different views of Jimmy's character's motivations in a scene. Ivy officially returns to Bombshell, and we hear her in Let Me Be Your Star, and all is fucking right in the world. I shed a tear, genuinely. Eileen leans over to Tom and goes, "I forgot how great she is," and Tom goes, "I didn't." Tom and I understand each other. The joy on Ivy's face when she finishes the song and everyone applauds her, like, I do wish we got to see the moment when she learned that she was going to be Marilyn again, and this time she's going to be Marilyn on Broadway, and there's no Karen waiting in the wings to steal it. Julia is still waiting on a callback from Scott, her friend from grad school, it seems. Tom brings coffee and croissants for the company during their break because he's amazing, and he tells Ivy she's even better, and she tells him that because this time around she's not terrified. Because she has a good director. Yeah, because she doesn't have an insane predator yelling at her all the time. It does do wonders for her performance. Tom tells her that he wants to know any of her instincts. He tells the whole company this. Says he wants to hear any feedback that they have about their characters. Eileen's press person for Bombshell, Agnes, tells them that they need to do some serious work on Bombshell's PR, and she's played by another fucking Rent alumni, Daphne Rubin Vega, the icon, the legend herself, also now on Has Been Hotel. Losing Derek as their big name director has hurt their projected ticket sales very severely, apparently, so they need to drum up some positive attention and start. Sam is back in town. Ivy convinces him to come say hi to Tom, and he talks to Julia and Tom about being on tour and about the fact that he regrets taking the job. Tom immediately tells him, "Oh, you should come back to Broadway. You should come back to Bombshell," but Julia cautions against it, considering they have everything except Marilyn's mother cast, including swings already, but Tom misses Sam and believes he can find something for him. Kyle and the gang get a hold of the casting list for the diva part in Hit List, and Jimmy is not happy about the people Derek is seeing for it. In particular, he gets really mad about Leah Michelle, which I personally really enjoy watching. Leah Michelle? If you say it one more time, she magically appears. Great lines, good line. I don't know if it was Glee shade or just Leah Michelle shade, but I love it. Whatever the answer is. Derek thinks they should cast a real life star to mirror the character, who is inspired by Beyonce and Lady Gaga. She's meant to be like a big pop star. Scott tells Derek that listening to Jimmy's opinions will be more effective than just shutting Jimmy down. He wants them to find some common ground so that the director and the writers can at least fucking get along a little bit better. Tom throws a big party for the cast, but spends it in his bedroom looking through all his notes and like just pieces and clips, trying to find some place for Sam in the show. Julia tells him to just enjoy the night and worry about breaking the news to Sam that they probably don't have a spot for him the next day. But while looking through all his work to try and find Ivy a break in Act 2, because that's something she requested, Tom stumbles across a song from a scrapped musical of hers that Julia and Sam both loved. Sam and Tom perform it. It's called Let's Start Tomorrow Tonight, and it's so much fun. Genuinely, Leslie Odom Jr. is just stupid good. Ivy tells them the song could almost fit into Bombshell, and Tom decides that they can fit it into the Kennedy storyline and give the song to Sam. He even tells Sam explicitly to quit Book of Mormon before Tom is even sure that he can make this work. Karen vents to Anna about how she likes Jimmy, but he's been really fucking weird with her. He won't talk to her at all off stage anymore. Karen steals a shirt from Jimmy's, and there's like this very heated moment where he tells her that she looks better in it, and then deflects and says that would be great in the show for her to steal his shirt, and that Karen should pitch that to Derek. Karen tells him to pitch it himself and explains that Derek can be tough at first, but once she understood how he directed, the two of them really clicked. But I actually think you're a victim, Gully. Do not forget that he sexually harassed you. And the way he tormented you during Bombshell as well. Jimmy then tells Karen that her connection with Derek is special to them. Derek tries to work with Jimmy on what to do about the diva role, but Jimmy just isn't keen on listening to Derek's advice nor changing what he's written. Karen suggests letting Anna audition for the role of the diva, but Derek says she's so perfect in the role of Jimmy's sister, there's no way. Eileen invites a reporter from the New York Times to Bombshell rehearsals to be the first person to see Ivy as the new Marilyn in the new version of the show. But when Eileen shows up, Tom tells her that he gave Ivy the morning off while he and the ensemble play around with a new number. But the reporter shows up and sees Eileen and Tom arguing over the fact Tom is making decisions without telling anyone. She tells him that they can't have two JFK numbers, so one has to be cut. Julia argues that Our Little Secret is relevant to Marilyn and the story, and Let's Start Tomorrow just has to go. Tom unfortunately knows that they're right, but he's mortified that he has to break his promise to Sam, especially after telling him already to quit Book of Mormon, and it turns out that Sam already has quit his other job to come back to Bombshell. Derek brings in a bunch of LED screens for the set for Hit List, meaning that he directly played into a trend that I really dislike in modern theatre. Jimmy fights it, saying the work needs to work better on its own and they shouldn't have any gimmicks, and Karen agrees, which pisses Derek off. Julia brings Tom down to ask for Derek's opinion on a hard decision, and just so happens to run into Scott while she's there. Turns out that in grad school, Julia promised Scott that he could direct a play of hers, but when they offered a bigger director to her, she took the offer and left Scott behind in the dust. He's still mad about it. I love Julia, but I really don't think she's a good person, actually. Sorry. Tom winds up telling Derek that the way he talks to actors is awesome, the way Derek just doesn't care what they think. Tom, buddy, I'm losing you here. Derek says having them respect you is more important than having them like you, which is true, but Derek straight up is abusing his actors. There's layers we can get to here. It doesn't have to be abuse or no control over the situation. There's a middle ground. Anna basically has a little pep talk with Kyle, telling him to get over his obvious feelings for Jimmy and focus on what he can have, aka cute Latin boy. It's kind of a very sweet moment, but we could have gone without the Kyle having feelings for Jimmy storyline. I'm just tired of that. Derek tries to connect with Jimmy again by opening up about his early days in his career where he didn't have big budget or big sets and he had to be innovative. He tells Jimmy that he's right and asks what they should focus on instead of scripts or costumes. Jimmy says that the story needs to focus on two people falling in love and what can get in the way of that. Then we get another Jeremy Jordan song, The World Cheered. God, that man can fucking sing. They have the ensemble dancers all being obstacles in Jimmy's path to get to Karen's character, and they just have Karen stand there with this dumb fucking face the whole time. Could we not have given her props or like something? Come on. We're not helping her even a little bit. There's one actor who plays an ensemble member in Hit List later in the season who is noticeably absent here. However, more on that later. Karen vents to Anna again about being absolutely head over heels for Jimmy, and Anna tries to talk her into just telling him. Karen refuses, but Anna says, okay, fine, I'll put myself out there first. So she calls out Derek's name in the middle of a bar and then sings this really weird fucking pop version of If I Were a Boy by Beyonce. And I'm so sorry, but it's really bad. Chris Rodriguez is so talented and she's phenomenal, but this rendition is so weird and so bad. She's like dancing on top of the bar, being all sexy, trying to sing this like really heartfelt, heartbreaking song. It's so, and like the way they've popified it, it's bad. I hate it. But in the show, everyone thinks she nailed it and this was super impressive, and she gets the role of the diva. Yay. Tom officially tells Sam that they can't put the new number in the show. Sam tells him he left his job for this, and Tom says, you left your job because you were unhappy. To which Sam says, I left my job for a lot of reasons. And sure, he was unhappy, but he did not make the call to leave until Tom literally told him, you should quit your show to come back to Bombshell. I can guarantee you a role in Bombshell. Sam has every fucking right to be mad at Tom about this. On Tom's like path to becoming a director and finding his feet in terms of listening to his actors, Sam was collateral damage and it fucking sucks. But Tom has finally gained the confidence to say no to every request that his actors say, and he's found the balance of when to listen and when to put his foot down. Eileen tells Tom that she's found an actor for the role of Gladys, Marilyn's mother, who will be phenomenal and also bring in amazing press. It's Lee Conroy, Ivy's mother. Eileen asks if Tom thinks it'll be okay with Ivy, and Tom says Ivy is a professional and will handle it. Now, I understand that it'll be an amazing story and will be great for the show, but Tom knows that Ivy's relationship with her mother isn't just complicated, it's emotionally abusive. I don't think this is okay. Karen finally confronts Jimmy and asks if he likes her, but Jimmy goes silent, so Karen asks Derek to walk her home instead. Derek invites Karen out for another drink near her place, and Karen says no. When she gets upstairs, she has a knock on her door. It's Jimmy. They immediately start making out before going to seemingly have sex on the kitchen table, and Karen better fucking sanitize that before letting Anna eat there, I swear to God. No tea, no shade. Live your life. No, I'm not kink shaming, but like, please sanitize that. That's a shared kitchen area. You all just need to be used to the costume changes. I'm so sorry. They're not going anywhere. The beginning of the next episode, Karen and Jimmy wake up together. It's very scandalous. And Karen goes to make them coffee, something that always happens in TV shows after like people sleep together. Where? I don't know. I live with my partner, and when we wake up, neither one of us, we don't have a coffee machine is also like maybe the thing. Like, we don't have a way to make coffee inside the apartment. I was like, neither one of us like goes, I'll go make her some coffee, and wakes the other up with a gorgeous mug of coffee. That's my dream. That's not what my life is. But Karen's making them coffee. They're still half naked. And while they are half naked while she's making coffee, her dad buzzes her intercom. She completely forgot, but he is coming to town and staying with her, I think. Jimmy, to his credit, is like so happy and willing to meet her dad, but Karen kicks him out of the apartment. And she makes him climb out of the window because her dad is already like coming up to the apartment and she doesn't want them to cross paths. But Karen's dad sees his shoes like scurrying out through the window, which makes it look far worse. Karen, you could have just like, I don't know, been more normal about this. Ivy has been getting lots of calls from her mother, which she's dodging because she's still mad at her mum for not coming to the opening night of Dangerous Liaisons, which is so fair. We find out that Sam has been given a job in Bombshell, but it's a cover for the ensemble, so his likelihood of going on is like pretty high if he's covering multiple ensemble tracks, but like it's not like he's performing every day of the week, you know? Or he's even like a swing that's covering a lead. After apologizing to Scott, Julia's still struggling to just like let it go, and she sent him an email thanking him for hearing her out, even after Tom was like, hey, that's weird, don't do that, you're being obsessive. When Ivy finally gets to the theater, Eileen, Tom and Julia finally tell her that they've found someone for the role of Gladys, Marilyn's mother. And speak of the fucking devil, Lee arrives in the middle of this conversation being like, oh my god, Ivy, I've been trying to call you to tell you I got the offer, but you haven't picked up the phone. So Ivy's understandably in shock. She's just found this out like at the rehearsal space. She has no time to process. So when Eileen starts explaining like the business pros of casting Lee in the role, Ivy is obviously feeling very, very pressured to just go along with it, even though Julia is saying like, we're not going to do anything that makes you uncomfortable, like let us know if you are uncomfortable. And had this been a private conversation where Ivy had time to think, she might have been able to voice that she was uncomfortable, but they really haven't given her the space to do that here. Tom tries to talk to Ivy about it to his credit, but Ivy and Sam are both understandably pretty mad at him about this. When Ivy and Lisa are running the scenes through that, you know, should be very emotionally intense between Marilyn and her mother, the actors are both playing it very warm and very shallow because they're both afraid to delve into their own very personal, complicated emotions tied to each other. Karen's dad comes to watch Karen rehearse for Hit List, and we learn that there's some big fundraiser for the Manhattan Theatre workshop happening that night, and Hit List will be debuting at least some tracks, some songs, I think, for the board members. Derek invites Karen's dad along, saying like, oh my god, you should be so proud of your daughter, come watch what she's doing. Karen's dad voices some questions to Derek about why Karen would have left Bombshell, this like Broadway lead, to do this small show, but Karen insists to him that it's the right project for her, and her dad is ultimately very supportive of that and of her kind of doing what she wants to do. Karen's dad, however, mistakenly takes Derek's fondness of Karen to mean that Derek was the figure he saw climbing out of Karen's window that morning. While walking to work, Jimmy is the mysterious, scary, shady guy that he used to live with and he got the pages back from, and he arrives at rehearsals late and he seems really off, and so Karen checks in on him to make sure it's not about her or the fact that they spent the night together. Jimmy assures her that it's not, but then he asks if she has told anyone, and he says that it might be better to keep it between them due to the fact that they're working together. What we as the audience know is that he's clearly afraid of Derek finding out. Karen, however, does not know that. But then this mysterious figure shows up at the fucking rehearsal space, and it turns out that Jimmy owes this guy money, seemingly a lot of it, and the person threatens him that he'll find a way for Jimmy to pay it because he knows where Jimmy lives, where he works, and he can always talk to Jimmy's new friends. Eileen schedules for her contact at the New York Times to come to rehearsal the following day with a photographer to launch the story of Lee coming out of retirement to play Ivy's mother in Bombshell. And Eileen and this reporter, I guess, they're hardcore flirting with each other. Lee talks to Sam and accidentally mentions to him that it was Tom's decision personally to hire her, even though it was Eileen's idea. And then when they rehearse the, emotional mother-daughter scene again, Tom asks Ivy and Lee questions about their own lives to draw on for the scene. And obviously this very quickly derails. No one is surprised. Lee tells a story about when she was in The Sound of Music when Ivy was 8, and Ivy gained some weight. Lee begged the producers to let Ivy audition for one of the Von Trapp children, and they brought her in to audition for Kurt. Ivy then tells the story about Lee visiting her in theatre camp to see her in her first real role in Into the Woods. Wink, wink, smash. And how Lee was already upstaging her. And the worst part was when the little girl who played Cinderella got a standing ovation, Lee told Ivy, who's playing Little Red, if you were born with the talent she has, that could have been you. But you weren't. So you're going to have to work that much harder. Lee tries to prove her point by saying that Ivy did work harder and look where you are now. And Ivy retaliates by saying, I'm here and you shouldn't be. But of course, when I finally get my big shot, you have to show up and remind me that I'm still not good enough. But guess what? At least the best part of my career is still ahead of me. And good for you, Ivy. Get her again. Get her again for me. Eileen and Julia go to the fundraiser for the Manhattan Theatre Workshop to see what Derek and Karen left them for. And Julia is ecstatic about the chance to further harass Scott, who clearly doesn't want anything to do with this woman. At the fundraiser, Karen's dad tells Derek that Karen could have been a star if Derek had let her, and that he'd been reading up on how Derek treats his actresses and how he knows that Derek encouraged Karen to leave Bombshell. Derek assures him that he respects Karen and that he had nothing to do with Karen's decision to leave Bombshell to join Hit List. But honestly, I'm glad someone finally seems concerned about Derek and Karen's relationship, knowing that he is a known predator. Jimmy really awkwardly asks Scott for an advancement on his pay, and Scott informs him that they're a non-profit theatre, which leaves Jimmy in a very desperate spot, obviously. Scott makes a joke about getting a restraining order against Julia, and honestly, he probably should. Eileen's New York Times boy toy also shows up at the fundraiser to spend time with Eileen, but the fact that he's there could be a big opportunity for Hit List. And we finally see this big diva number that we've been hearing a lot about, and I'm glad that we finally have a song for Anna that isn't a bad Beyonce cover. Woo! The song is very much so a pop song with no storytelling that fits into the show, which makes sense because she's playing a big pop star, but I do hate numbers in musicals like that a lot of the time. And also they have her doing this like insane aerial work that looks spectacular, but I feel like there is no way you could ask an actress to do that and still like serve good vocals if you're actually performing live. I don't know much about aerial work, to be clear, but I just can't imagine it doesn't conflict with vocal performance. While Anna is performing though and everyone is distracted, Jimmy goes to the coat room and searches through everyone's jackets trying to find money or valuables to steal in order to pay off the debt, presumably. Derek, however, catches him in the act, and in the one good thing Derek has ever done in this entire fucking show, he listens to Jimmy about the fact that he's in trouble, and Jimmy explains that he stole from his old drug dealer when he set out on a new life, and Derek seemingly connects with this story and offers Jimmy the money. And then he makes a joke about them having matching jackets, which explains why Karen's dad thought it was Derek. Julia congratulates Scott on his work and mentions that she thinks a lot about the work they could have created together. Scott jokes that he hopes she doesn't stop stalking him, and it's actually really cute. Maybe he is into her. And the reporter comes up to talk to the creative team and mentions that he wants to see more of the diva character in the show. So Scott tells them that they're going to deliver on whatever he wants to see because of how influential this guy is. Then the reporter tells Eileen that he's going to give the Bombshell story to another writer so that he can date Eileen with no conflict of interest. Lee apologizes to Ivy for how tense things got during rehearsal, and Ivy doesn't apologize though. She says it felt really good to tell her those things to her face. Lee doesn't back down either after this though, and she says that she encouraged Ivy to work hard and she never missed any of Ivy's shows. And when Ivy tells her that she shouldn't have taken the job, which she shouldn't have, Lee has the audacity to tell her, they need me, you need me. Ivy tells her that they may need her to open the show, but after that, she'll never need her again. And I just want to give Ivy a hug so bad. Karen's dad seems more and more unsupportive of Karen's decisions, both with Bombshell and with Jimmy, and it sucks a lot. You know, so what if she hasn't given details to her parents about the boy she just started seeing because her dad seems annoyed about that fact? I think that's very normal. They've just started seeing each other. I have literally never told my parents about a partner of mine until it is months in and feels very, very solid. That's my own thing, but I don't know. I don't think when you live in a different city to your parents, it's not like you're seeing them every week and you've really only started seeing this guy the night before. I don't think that's abnormal to tell your parents about, to not tell your parents about, sorry. We see Hang the Moon in rehearsal, which is the duet between Marilyn and her mother, and it makes me cry every single time I watch this. It's so beautiful, it is so heartbreaking, and everyone in that damn rehearsal room is crying, and yeah, me the fuck too. Ivy and Lee hug at the end of the number, and it seems to say a lot for the two of them and their relationship. Before he leaves town, Kara's dad does apologize for being harsh, thank God. He even compliments Jimmy's work and proposes that they all have dinner together opening night. Jimmy says that he would really like that, but as he's leaving, he accidentally lets it slip to Derek that Karen is with someone. Karen's dad, I think, does. Scott goes for coffee with Julia and he asks her for help on Hit List. He asks her to be a dramaturg on it, or at least to read Hit List and give her thoughts as a way to make up for Julia fucking him over in the past. Tom tells Ivy that he knows that working with Lee is hard, but it's turning out great. And Ivy says, yeah, it might be great for the show, but it's been absolutely tortured for her. And she asks why Tom would hire Lee when she knows what Ivy's relationship with her is like. And Tom says that he was just doing what's right for the show. So Ivy says, so am I. We're not friends. I work for you now, and that's it. And honestly, I love that Ivy isn't letting people mistreat her anymore. I love her so much. And yeah, Tom and her have this long history of a beautiful friendship, but Tom has really fucked her over in a personal way with this. And I love that she's saying, okay, if you're focusing purely on your work decisions and not about caring for me as a person and a long-term friend, then we are not going to be friends. I'm going to be your employee. Bombshell is now intact. Tom and Ivy are clashing a lot creatively, like in terms of like the work during Tact, but it's obviously heightened by the problems going on in their personal lives. It's making the whole cast, like everyone, respect Tom a lot less. And we also learn that Leo was out visiting colleges without Julia. Leo was so insanely absent this season. I cannot emphasize or stress that enough. Karen and Jimmy keep messing around secretly backstage, and Karen is growing more and more like weird with the fact that they're keeping the situation a secret, and Jimmy is insisting on keeping it a secret. So it kind of talks to Anna about it, and Anna ponders whether Jimmy has something to hide, and Karen laughs about it, joking about him having like a secret wife or kid. But like, girl, people do lie about having partners all the time. Be careful. Anna points out that they are both adults. They can be professional while also being public about being in a relationship, which is a fair point. Jimmy immediately starts paying Derek back for the money that Derek gave him because he does want to do the right thing by him, and Derek is really kind and really empathetic and sympathetic to him. He says how when he was younger he did a lot of shit too, and that sometime the two of them should trade war stories. He's really reaching out and trying to connect with Jimmy. Karen walks past without saying hi to Jimmy, and Derek asks if the two of them are alright because they're seemingly barely talking. Eileen's reporter dodges Eileen's request for him to write another bombshell story, saying that he wants to spend a night with her where they don't focus on work. He is, however, still showing up at Hitless rehearsals to write more about that show. He watches a new number they've staged, and they once again have Karen's character in the worst costume I've ever fucking seen in my life. She's in a striped sweater, a huge statement necklace, a skater skirt, and pumps. It is the most 2013 outfit I've ever seen, but it's also just like a terrible costume for a musical theater performance. Plus, they have her doing like really, really awkward choreography. I usually really love all the original songs on the show, whether it's Hitless or Bombshell, but this one really sounds to me like it's from a modern Barbie movie, like a post-2015 Barbie movie. Tom forgets Ivy's birthday, which sucks. Ivy has a party planned with all of the cast, and she specifically doesn't want Tom to go to it because after everything that's gone down between them, she just doesn't want him there, but especially now that he forgot it's her birthday, she really doesn't want him there. Tom realizes that he forgot it was her birthday when flowers are delivered to the theater for Ivy, and he decides that this is a perfect opportunity for him to patch things up with Ivy and remind her that he does love her. So Tom asks Ivy if she's doing anything for her birthday, and Ivy lies, saying that she's not because she doesn't want Tom to come to the party. But because of that, Tom invites her out to dinner, and he won't take no for an answer because she has to do something on her birthday. Sam and Bobby assure her that they'll start the party later so she can still arrive and find a hot guy to hook up with because she's been wanting to. Eileen is talking to her publicist, Mimi Marquez herself, and she mentions that Tom is surprising Ivy with Liza Minnelli, and Eileen's publicist immediately say like she'll contact journalists to make sure that they'll be there because this could be a really, really good piece of positive publicity. Tom, however, is not aware that they're going to turn this into a PR moment for Bombshell. Karen has a very Soleil moment where she specifically asks Jimmy to tell everyone that they're together, and when he says that he can't do that, Karen says then until he can, she's not going to sneak around with him anymore. Julia officially comes onto Hitless as a dramaturg, working with Kyle to try and work on the story, and Kyle seemingly is having trouble making decisions without Jimmy there. Initially. Once he starts to feel more comfortable, he starts really taking initiative. And while they work, Scott reveals that he used to have a crush on Julia in college, but she was with Frank, so he never acted on it or even told her. Things are awkward and uncomfortable as anything at dinner with Tom and Ivy. Ivy is on her phone constantly, and Tom can't seem to like get a conversation flowing naturally. And he notices that Eileen is there with her reporter boyfriend, who tells her how happy he is that they're finally having a night free of work. Ivy then spots Michael Riedel there too with Bombshell's publicist, but when she asks Tom about it, he says like it must be a coincidence because he legitimately doesn't know that Eileen planned all of this. And then the woman, the myth, the legend herself, Liza Minnelli, walks in, and she immediately walks over to Ivy. Tom did set this up for Ivy's birthday just like as a nice thing, knowing that Ivy's dream has always been to meet Liza Minnelli. But when Ivy sees press that are taking photos, she assumes that Tom has set this up merely for the PR stunt of it all. Tom tries to convince her that that wasn't the case, but it admittedly doesn't look good, and Eileen admits to both Tom and Ivy that she's the one who set up the fact that it's a PR stunt, which causes Eileen State, who was really happy about having a night with no work, to step out after he realizes, oh, this wasn't a night off. She's still working. Cool. Michael Riedel, reporter Menace, sees the tension and swoops in, making a joke about another bad story, and Ivy goes to leave. At that exact moment, though, Liza Minnelli tells her to sit down, and she goes, okay, sorry, Liza Minnelli. It's fantastic. Megan Hilty, 10 out of 10 for this line delivery. And then it turns out that Tom wrote an original song for Ivy that Liza is going to sing for her, and it's so sweet. Liza Minnelli is just the fucking best of the best, like, genuinely. Karen stays late at rehearsals to try and work on a scene, and she runs into a very, very drunk Derek. Karen asks him what's wrong, and Derek admits that he has feelings for her. Karen apologetically tells Derek that she's seeing Jimmy, and when Karen says she hopes it won't make things weird, Derek goes, of course not. Let's get back to work. Ivy and Tom have seemingly patched things up again after the Liza song. Tom's insanely wonderful gesture has warmed Ivy's heart, and Tom even directly apologizes for everything with Ivy's mother, saying that he wasn't thinking straight, which is the main thing, and I'm very glad that he does this. Ivy says she may have overreacted a little. I don't think she did, but I want them to work this out because they love their friendship, so I'll let it slide. And Ivy nearly invites him to the party, but thinks better of it. But when she arrives at the party, she does immediately start defending Tom to Sam and like everyone there, but it turns out that she left her keys behind at the restaurant. So Tom follows her to the bar where she's meeting with everyone, and he realizes that it was absolutely a planned outing for Ivy's birthday that he wasn't invited to, and Tom is understandably like heartbroken by this. During rehearsal the next day, Derek is a fucking tyrant. His return to his season 1 self, apparently, but kind of worse. He's especially being cruel to Jimmy, who he grabs and puts his hands on to try and move into position, which, yikes. Karen tries to step in, but Derek tells her that it concerns her boyfriend, not her. Jimmy realizes that Karen told Derek about them, and Derek tells Jimmy that he should have been straight with him. Jimmy goes, oh, I'm sorry I didn't stay away from her after you told me to. Karen, rightfully, is not happy to hear that, and she tells Derek that she's not his property, that he pulled this shit with Dev too, and he can't keep doing it. Derek goes, doing what exactly? Helping you to get everything you ever wanted? Don't worry, sweetheart, I'm done. And I want to hit him with a car. Jimmy tries to tell Karen that they should leave, but Karen says that she's not going anywhere with him either, that Jimmy should have been honest with her and told her what was going on rather than making her sneak around to lie to everyone. Good for her, correct. Ivy follows Tom out of the bar, saying that it's not what it looks like, and she didn't want to invite him, and Tom says that, look, he knows she's been mad at him, but they're friends, and he just wanted to make things right for her, and this situation hurts. Ivy explains that he can't be her friend right now. She just needs him to be her director instead. And it's painful and they miss each other, but she's right. He needs to be able to make creative decisions without worrying about her feelings, and she needs to be able to take a night off from her boss without worrying about him. It does just fucking really hurt to watch, though. Kyle shares his and Julia's new plotting for the show with Derek, saying that the diva character is now going to feel that her character, like the diva's character downfall happens because of Karen's character. The diva will now spend the second act plotting her revenge before enacting it at the end. Derek loves it. Kyle worries that Karen may have complaints because it minimizes her role a bit and her time on stage, but Derek dismisses that and says that Karen will handle it. Derek says that Anna will have a few of Karen's songs, and when Kyle asks what Jimmy and Karen will think about it, Derek says, I don't care. Scott asks Julia to continue her involvement with Hit List, whether they officially call it being a dramaturg or not, and she then asks her out for a drink and says that this time, if he does feel anything for her, he should let her know. Eileen explains to her reporter boyfriend that she has a Broadway show opening in 3 weeks, and she shouldn't have pretended that she could take a night off because she can't, and she won't apologize for that. And the reporter then explains that he just came out of a long marriage where his partner didn't work, and having to balance dating someone who's very much involved with their career is a learning experience for him. And then Eileen admits that, look, she's also not quite over her last relationship, but they agree to take things slow. They're going to keep being together. They're going to move forward. Then there's a montage of all the characters while Megan Hilty sings a cover of Bittersweet Symphony over the top of it. And it's very ironic to me personally, considering Ivy was just in the Dangerous Liaisons musical, because Cruel Intentions is an adaptation of Dangerous Liaisons, and the Cruel Intentions musical, which is a jukebox musical which features Bittersweet Symphony in the climax, like the film does, was one of the most insane musicals I've ever seen in my life. Jimmy goes to Karen's apartment apartment and sincerely apologizes to her, explaining that he knows he did the wrong thing, but he just didn't know what the right thing was. And he asks to take Karen out on a real date in public like he should have done initially. It's very sweet, and Jimmy even offers Karen his jacket, but she seemingly finds some coke and not the Coca-Cola kind in his pocket. And then Derek goes over to Ivy's place to wish her a happy birthday, and they sleep together again. Please fucking free her. Oh my god. I love you. I love you. Okay, episode 11, Ivy wakes up with Derek, and I want to die. A little bit. No, I do. Ivy kicks Derek out, though, because she needs to get ready for the invited dress rehearsal that Bombshell is putting on that night. Derek asks her out, like, to go out again that night, and Ivy goes, maybe, I'll call you. Correct. I love her. Tom is insanely nervous about the first audience seeing the show because he knows that he's not only a first-time director, but the show is also going to be directly compared to the work that Derek did when Derek was directing it in Bombshell. Like, obviously, multiple people, when it was in Bombshell, when it was in Boston, like, multiple people saw it, perceived it with Derek, this, like, well-renowned, very experienced director. So there's a lot of pressure that he feels he's up against. Jimmy, over at Hitlist, is working himself to the bone in order to get new songs written so that Derek doesn't just take all of Karen's solos and give them to Anna instead. Karen tries to see if he'll, like, admit that he's on coke after she found the coke in his jacket, because she assumes that because he was hiding it in his jacket. But he just says that he's on Adderall and Red Bull, and that's why he's so hyper. The dress rehearsal for Bombshell begins with the doors not opening on cue, like in the beginning of Let Me Be Your Star. When the doors are meant to open, they don't. Julia tells Tom that, listen, it's all good. We've got the screw up out of the way, and now, Tom, you can just enjoy. You can just have fun with the rest of the show. However, during the JFK number, the JFK actor goes to unzip Ivy's dress, and the zip gets caught. It looks like it's an invisible zip, so likely thing for it to do. As a cosplayer, invisible zips are my enemy. Tom is literally, like, counting the mistakes, and apparently at this point with the zip stuck, they're at 14. But genuinely, like, it's a rehearsal, it's a dress rehearsal, and it's their first time putting it on for an audience. It's not that bad, and it seems like the mistakes are minimal. But the big bad thing comes at the end of the number when Marilyn's dress, like, completely falls down. There's a slip that Ivy is wearing to be under the dress, and that also falls with it. So Ivy is completely naked on stage, which is not meant to happen. That is not the staging. Sam comforts Ivy about it, and he goes, I'm sure no one noticed. I mean, of course they noticed, but there's just so much else going on, you know, and bless him. An ensemble member apparently got an injury during the show, and so Sam has a chance to go on that night. And reviews from the invited dress are out, and they're all highly praising Ivy, but also all mentioning the fact that she gets naked in the show. After a bunch of tech errors, Eileen decides that she wants to cancel the first preview that night in order to work on everything that went wrong, but Tom adamantly does not want to cancel, because apparently cancelling first previews is admitting that they have a troubled production, or at least he believes that that's the case, so they cannot cancel the preview. He promises Eileen that they can fix everything by 3 p.m. and they'll have a perfect show for the audience that night. Eileen and Julia discuss the fact that they actually really liked the moment where Ivy was, like, naked, Marilyn was naked, because it worked very well symbolically, and Tom says they obviously can't get Ivy to do anything she's not comfortable with, but they all agree that they'll have a chat with her and see if she would be comfortable with it. Karen discusses her worries about Jimmy with Anna, and Anna says she won't let Derek start giving Karen and Jimmy, like, all of Karen and Jimmy's scenes or songs to her. Richard Francis is going to see the new Hitler stuff that night, so Derek wants to run through as much of it as they can possibly get through. Jimmy plays a new song that he's written for the diva, and Derek says he likes it, but everyone knows that, like, he very clearly doesn't. He has all the body language of not liking the song. Julia is hanging out at Hitlist and, like, helping them out, despite the fact that Bombshell is about to have its first preview, and Tom is running around like a headless fucking chicken trying to correct all the mistakes that happened the day before. Sure, Derek decides to run through the entire show start to finish so he can, like, see it properly, and he comes up with some new brilliant small changes, and then he decides he also wants to begin the show with the ending. He wants to start at media res. He wants to begin it with the diva going to Amanda, Karen's character. We finally kind of, like, name her in a way that I remember. Like, Amanda's concert, Anna is going to shoot a gun at a mysterious figure. We don't know who it is. It's a mystery. And he gets the diva to sing an a cappella little bit of Broadway Here I Come. And honestly, it fucks. It's a really good opening. It's a really good choice. But Karen and Jimmy are upset that Amanda's song is being given to Anna, even though Karen is still going to sing it later in its entirety. I don't know. It works thematically. I hate siding with Derek on anything, but this particular decision I like. I think it's a great choice. I think they can fire on other songs being given to Anna, but this one, good choice. Eileen and Tom have a discussion about the nudity with Ivy, who says she's not necessarily uncomfortable with it, but like she's been naked on stage before in hair, but she doesn't want it to overshadow the work that she's done and the work that she's done into giving a very good Marilyn performance. She asks for time to think it over before she comes to a decision, and Sam tells Ivy that she's incredible in the show, and if she gets naked, that's all anyone is going to remember. Because he did a show with nudity where all anyone remembers was, in Ivy's words, penis. Sam tells her they don't need to see her naked to feel that she's naked, that she's a great actress and can play the vulnerability without the physical nudity. At 3 p.m, Eileen asks if they fixed everything, and Tom says yes, everything's running correctly, so the show's gonna go on. But Tom is lying. They're still having a bunch of issues. Derek and Jimmy are arguing about the new beginning, and Scott asks Kyle what he thinks is best. Kyle apologizes to Jimmy but says, I think Derek's beginning's better, because it is, and Jimmy then confronts him about it, saying that they're meant to be a team, and then accuses Kyle of being jealous of him and Karen just like Derek is. It's a low blow, it's wrong, and it's cruel. Kyle stands up for himself though, saying no matter how much Jimmy bitches, Kyle is good at his job and is going to make right decisions for the show. The only fucking person with his head on straight around this whole entire production. Anna apologizes to Karen about the fact that she has taken one of her songs, and Karen says not to worry about it, that once Derek comes down it'll go back, because Derek only gave Anna the song because he's pissed at Karen. Anna obviously is not stoked to hear that comment, because it's a super horrible thing to say, especially to a friend who has been nothing but supportive of you. Karen sucks. Karen asks what's changed, considering Anna that morning had said she wouldn't let Derek take away Karen's songs, and Anna explains that she spent so long telling herself that it was fine and she's happy to accept whatever work she got because Karen was the star and Anna was her friend, but she didn't think that Karen actually felt that way too. Karen just replies to this with, well, I'm not the star anymore, are I? Which is horrible and completely fucking missing the point. Anna says it's not her fault that Derek thinks she's talented and wants to use her, and Karen says it's not about talent, and Anna goes, maybe not for you, guess you should have slept with Derek when you had the chance. And Anna, girl, you were entirely in the right before this. Why'd you have to go and say that? No, I can't be on your side. Julia comes up with a new idea to shorten the intermission, to have Dig Deep, the actual opener, happen in the audience. It's brilliant, it's fun, it works really well. Ivy, however, still doesn't know when the preview begins if she wants to go with the nudity or not. She says she'll know in the moment, so no one knows what she's going to do. During the scene, she keeps the slip on, but in the following scene of dialogue where JFK leaves her alone in bed, running out on her, after telling JFK that she's not like his other girls and he can't just run out on her, she drops her seat and is nude when telling him to come back to bed. It's honestly an even better moment for her vulnerability, considering it's after he insults her and she intends it to be powerful, but when he still leaves, it is her most vulnerable moment. It's perfect. Ivy is perfect. Her instincts are perfect. Karen tells Derek that after Hit List, she doesn't think her and Derek should work together again, and she asks if he gave her Marilyn because of her talent or if he wanted to sleep with her. He says her talent, and Karen goes, too fast. Huh? It's a good thing he didn't have to think about that and that it was because of your talent. Derek then tells her that Jimmy Collins is not Jimmy's real name and that he lent Jimmy a lot of money the previous week for a drug debt. Karen rightfully says she doesn't need to hear these things from Derek. Fair enough. She calls him a jealous old man, which is very funny to me. That evening for the preview, Sam doesn't get put in the show and he goes to talk to Tom about it. And he tells Tom that he feels like his career is going backwards and he can't do it. So he quits Bombshell. And honestly, good for him. Karen confronts Jimmy and asks what the money was for and if he took what she found in his pocket. She asks him at a cast party, which is maybe not the best environment for it. Jimmy says he doesn't want to talk about his past, that it doesn't matter anymore. Okay, there's a New York Times article dropping that is talking about both Bombshell and Hit List. It's kind of a review of both. And the article draws parallels between Hit List and the story of Marilyn Monroe. It says, though, that Bombshell focuses on the past while Hit List is the future. The article also mentions that Julia is Hit List's unofficial dramaturg and talks about how she spent the days leading up to Bombshell's previews with Hit List rather than working on Bombshell. Tom didn't know that Julia was off doing this. He's absolutely heartbroken and he has every right to be. Julia helped Derek while Tom was losing his mind, trying to live up to Derek's influence. She's not being a good partner. Eileen confronts her reporter boyfriend about this article, taking the way that he described Bombshell very personally and says that it's a betrayal of her trust. Jimmy apologizes to Kyle. Good. Karen again pleads for Jimmy to open up to her. He apologizes, but he just cannot do it. Jimmy's fucking drug dealer comes to the stage door and talks to Anna, and he begins flirting with her. Derek shows up on Ivy's doorstep again, despite her not calling that day or the day before. She double checks that what they're doing is casual, and when he confirms it, she invites him inside. Baby girl, no. Julia and Tom, or more so Julia, are trying to find a property for them to adapt for their next musical. Tom says that they should wait for the following day, which is Bombshell's opening night, and then they'll decide their next move. Eileen's publicist for Hit List encourages her to keep things going with Richard, the journalist who wrote the bad article, or the neutral article, the article that Eileen didn't like, and to keep him happy so that they don't get any more bad press. They also invite all of the cast and crew of Hit List, who have officially sold out all their shows. Jimmy asks Karen if she wants to go to the Bombshell opening night with him, but Karen says she doesn't want to go at all, that it'll just be super hard for her. She doesn't regret leaving Bombshell, but it would be like going to an ex's wedding, and Jimmy says the best thing to bring to an ex's wedding is a hot date. He says that she'll have him in her corner if she wants him. Anna invites Jimmy's drug dealer, whom we now learn is named Adam, to the Bombshell opening night and then out to drinks afterwards. The two are clearly having a little flirtation, and Adam admits to Anna that he's actually Jimmy's brother. Tom learns that the new production of City of Angels is out a director, and he gets asked informally if he'd be interested. He says Julia and him aren't launching right into the next production, which is a lie, mind you, so he entertains the idea of directing it. Ivy tries to go on a media ban, but after hearing people outside the theatre talk negatively about her performance, she cracks and looks at message boards. Derek tells her that nothing kills the work quicker than worrying about what other people are saying about it, which is true. And Leo is back. We finally actually see the adult teenager. He's finally back. He's going to opening night to support Julia. I honestly completely forgot the actor ever actually appeared on screen past season 1. It's that insignificant. We learn that Julia is moving out of Tom's place finally, and Leo reminisces on working on a Great Gatsby paper. Julia says that her and Tom bonded over the love of Gatsby and that they couldn't believe no one had made it into a musical yet. Baby girl, just wait for 2024. We had 2 at the same time, one featuring Smash's own Jeremy Jordan. Anna tells Karen about Adam and tells him that it's Jimmy's brother, and seemingly has more to tell Karen about Jimmy that we don't see as an audience. In the limo on the way to the opening of Bombshell, Julia gifts Tom this gorgeous hardcover of The Great Gatsby, gold foiled edges, it's stunning, and she tells him that the rights are available and that their lawyers are actively working on it. This is the project they have to do, and she's already told their publicist that they're going to announce it at the party. Interesting move. At the opening night, Eileen does not listen to her publicist's advice and instead dodges her date as much as she possibly can. She says that he made his choice when he published the article about Bombshell and Hit List, and now she's making hers. Karen and Jimmy run into each other at the opening, and he apologizes for not being more honest with her and tries to explain that it's very hard for him. Karen says that Jimmy has until opening to tell her the truth, to talk to her about Adam and about everything, because she's already heard a lot of it from Adam directly, but she still wants to hear it from Jimmy. Jimmy says fuck it and tells Karen that his dad abused him and his mother when they were young, and when she died, he lived on the streets. He began dealing drugs as well as taking them, and even shares that he witnessed ODs and didn't call for help, because when you're living a lie like that, you do a lot of things you're not proud of. He says Adam got him into that life and Kyle saved him, and Kyle is his real brother. Jimmy begs Karen not to cut him out of her life because of who he used to be. Tom says that him and Julia should sleep on the Gatsby decision, that they've announced new projects at openings before and then they never come to fruition. It makes sense, but we know Tom is really just like hedging his bets a little bit. The show's publicist has to go at Eileen for pissing off the New York Times reporter. Everything's messy. Before the curtain rises, Ivy goes to Lee and asks her to be honest with her. Before all the reviews and the feedback, is she going to make it? Lee, her mother. Lee tells her that all it takes in that business is one role that is right for you to make it. And Ivy fought like hell, and now that role belongs to her. She says, now go out there and show them what all those years in the chorus taught you. It's a very sweet moment between the two of them and a rare and wonderful moment where Lee is being a supportive mother. Then the best scene of the entire show happens. The best song, Don't Forget Me. We finally get to hear Ivy sing it, and we get the whole performance too. She's just phenomenal. She truly is. Go watch Ivy's performance of Don't Forget Me, because I literally speaking about it cannot do it justice. The audience explodes. Every single person in that theater immediately gets up and gives Ivy a standing ovation. She's made it. Bombshell has made it. During Bowers, the cast called Tom up on stage to vow with them all, and while he's on stage, Rosie fucking O'Donnell leans forward and whispers to Julia that this show is their best work yet, and she mentions that she can't wait to see what Tom does with City of Angels. I know drama. Derek messages to Scott that he wants to take Hit List to Broadway. Good shows transfer fast. Julia confronts Tom about the fact he doesn't want to commit to a project right now, or so he said, when it seems like what he actually just doesn't want to commit to is a project with her. Tom argues that he doesn't have a formal offer, it depends on reviews, but he just wants to make a name for himself as a director, and he doesn't expect Julia to wait for him. He gently tells Julia that he loves writing with her and he does want to do it again, but right now his priority is directing. Ivy and Karen run into each other in the bathroom where Ivy is hiding out while waiting for the New York Times review to drop. Ivy tells Karen that she's been thinking about her a lot lately because she can't stop comparing herself to Karen and how much the critics all loved Karen in Boston. And Karen tells Ivy the truth, and no one could ever be as great a Marilyn as Ivy was that night. Karen even says that she was so jealous of Ivy, she nearly left at intermission, but that she stayed because she wanted to see Ivy sing Don't Forget Me. Ivy laughs that the Karen Cartwright was so jealous of her, saying that she had to do 8 Broadway shows to generate similar buzz to what Karen just had everywhere she went. Karen says that she hasn't even done one yet, and Ivy goes, "You will, just not this season." And Karen says, "Deal." Liar! Kyle sees Adam and says that even though Jimmy promised to be on his best behavior, Kyle didn't. He goes and confronts Adam and Anna, telling Anna she should stay away from him. Adam goes, "Oh look, it's Jimmy's boyfriend," which is such a shitty thing to say. Anna should leave him right there, just for that. Adam shoves Kyle, so Kyle shoves back harder. The two are causing a scene at this point. Adam goes to swing at Kyle, but Jimmy steps in, saying that it's time for Adam to leave. Karen only notices the commotion at this moment and walks over just as Jimmy punches Adam after Adam threatens Karen. Karen tells him to stop, but Jimmy keeps going. The two get into a brawl, and Eileen loudly goes, "Of course, they're from Hit List," to the reporters, before dumping a bucket of ice on the fighting pair and telling them to get the fuck out. Just to get out, I added the fuck. Jimmy apologizes to Karen, saying he had to, and Karen argues that he didn't. She says he scares her and she has to protect herself. I think this is bad timing around it because Jimmy was specifically provoked by an abusive figure from his past, but not wanting to be with someone after you see that they have a violent streak is fair. The Times review drops and it praises Julia's book profusely, as well as Tom's score, although he's not a huge fan of Tom's direction. All the other critics loved his direction though, but the Time review says that it seems Tom and Julia's works were in conflict and were marching to 2 different beats. Tom asks Julia to do Gatsby together, even to announce it that second. But Julia doesn't like that she's the plan B after the reviews didn't like Tom's direction and he's not set in stone that he can go to another directing job. Ivy makes a beautiful speech dedicated to Tom and raises a toast to him, crediting her success to his belief in her and his talent and his hard work. Ivy also thanks Karen, which I think shows how gracious she is when she absolutely does not have to be. And then she invites Karen on stage to sing with her and they perform That's Life. It slaps. After the performance, Ivy asks Karen if she and Derek ever slept together, even saying she figured it was bound to happen when they worked together because everyone knows that Derek takes advantage of all his actresses. Classy guy. Karen says no, but does mention that Derek asked her out a few weeks ago, and Ivy makes a connection that Derek started seeing her again after Karen rejected him. "I will kill Derek with my bare hands. I'm so serious." Derek tries to leave with her, but she turns him down and says, "I'll let you know if I need you again." Cunty, I love it. Julia talks to Scott about how badly she wants to do Gatsby, and Scott encourages her to write it as a play. She clearly has the talent for it, and he even offers her a slot at the Manhattan Theatre Workshop for it next fall. Lee tells Ivy how proud she made her that night, and how glad she is that she gets to work with her. It's very sweet. Tom and Kyle are 2 of the only last stragglers at the opening, and wind up chatting by the bar. Kyle tells Tom that Bombshell is the best show he's ever seen, and that Tom's work specifically is amazing. Tom asks if Kyle wants to get out of there. Kyle decided to put himself before Jimmy for a change and goes home with Tom. Good for you, Kyle. Getting dick down is good for the soul. Good for you. Derek ends up being approached by Daisy Parker on his walk home, who was one of the dancers who accused him of sexual harassment earlier in the season. She tells Derek that his work on Bombshell was great, and she fucking apologizes for what she did to them. She even fucking says that he was right, that she did what she did in order to try and revive her career. It makes my blood boil that the writers ever thought putting this in the show was okay. And then Derek fucking takes her home. Eileen decides they're gonna put all their effort into running the fuck out of a Tony's campaign. Bombshell partners with the Today Show to get a segment on the cast teaching a masterclass with young kids as part of an educational Broadway program. And it's good press for the show now that they're launching a Tony's campaign. The host of the show interviews Ivy, and we learn how absolutely over fucking worked she is. 4 shows over the weekend, then a flight to LA to do a promotional appearance on a talk show, then caught a red eye that morning to be there for the Today Show appearance. Ivy is clearly exhausted, as is the whole cast. The show's publicist has to keep reminding Ivy to perk up for the camera, and we see a very basic choreography sparse version of 20th Century Mambo with the excuse that it's because the Today Show host has to match Ivy, but it is also because of Megan Hilty not being a dancer first. We get to hear her vocals on it though, so I am happy. Eileen mentions to Tom while they're watching the broadcast that Julia is writing Gatsby and that Scott Nichols had already announced it to his board. Julia had not told Tom she was going ahead with it. They do a promo shoot for Hit List, and Anna is jokingly pointing the gun at Karen, and it feels in poor taste, I don't know. We learn that Anna has terrible taste in men and is still seeing Adam. We also learn that Jimmy did not come home at all the prior night. He eventually shows up for this photo shoot, but is drunk off his ass and costs them the cover of this magazine shoot. It will now be an inside spread instead, the best the photographer can promise them. Bombshell is in shaky standing ticket-wise. Their advanced sales aren't what they were projected to be, and their publicist is skeptical of how they'll still open till June for the Tony season. Julia asks if they can launch a new radio campaign, but their advertising budget just doesn't seem to allow for that. Tom talks to Julia about how Gatsby was their dream project, and the fact he didn't want to begin work on it right then because he thought he would be spending all his time directing didn't mean he didn't want to make it with Julia, and he tells her that she should unpromise the play to Scott so that they can start working on it as a musical together. Julia tries to talk to Scott about it, but Scott says that he spent some additional funds on Hit List and needs to follow it up with a home run like Gatsby. Julia has to stick with this project. Derek is holding auditions for Jimmy's understudy, and Sam auditions. Jimmy, for some reason, is incredibly mad that they're hiring an understudy because he's an idiot, I guess. Anna assures Karen that Jimmy acting out because Karen broke up with him is not Karen's fault, but Kyle says it is. It's not, but it's kind of funny to see Kyle just go off at her. Kyle has also still been seeing that lighting guy while also sleeping with Tom numerous times. Julia tells Tom that she is keeping her commitments and is going forward with Gatsby as a play with Scott, but she will move forward on another project with Tom at the same time and will make that a priority. Tom says they're partners, which means that they should work on everything together. And Julia points out that he had gotten City of Angels... that had he gotten City of Angels, she wouldn't have been working on that with him. Tom almost threatens Julia with the fact she optioned Gatsby in their company name. Hit List is putting on the show for an audience for the very first time, trying to find a producer who will take it to Broadway. A bunch of people show up, including Eileen, trying to scope out her competition after Agnes suggested she do so. When the show starts, though, Jimmy, who turned up late, maybe using again, misses his cue. Ivy, the poor angel, tries to moderate a Q&A between Tom and Julia at table 46. Tom and Julia are both acting very unprofessional and are clearly on different pages, and Ivy just tries her best to keep them on track. An audience member asks what their next project is, and Tom says The Great Gatsby. Julia corrects him, saying she's doing it as a play with Scott Nichols directing. The audience member then asks if they're still working together in that case, and Tom firmly says no. They aren't. We see another full song from Hit List, a sad love song that starts off with Jessie writing it, and we see the progression of Amanda stealing and releasing the song as her own. Jimmy has comically red eyes, and so he is high. And he also leaves his mark on stage and just kind of starts walking around during the scene. There's a moment where all Amanda's fans use pictures of her on iPads to form a collage of her that is very that Connor Murphy mural, and you will be found in the Dear Evan Hansen movie, unfortunately. Tom tells Julia that he has spent months taking care of her during the process of Bombshell, and in return, she couldn't even wait 6 months for him. I don't really think that's fair, but Tom is adamant about it, and for the time being, he is dissolving their partnership. We see the big finale of Hit List where the diva shoots Amanda, and we finally see my favorite ensemble member. She's finally here, Philippa Sue. She's just seen swaying for now, but she's here, and I'm glad that she's here. After Karen's character gets shot, Jimmy is supposed to catch her, but he isn't in his place, so Karen falls and hits the metal hard instead. He is insanely apologetic, but obviously it doesn't matter much after Karen scraped her arm on the set as a result of Jimmy being on stage hot. Kyle apologizes to Karen for Jimmy's behavior after the show, and Derek says it was Jimmy's last performance. He can't continue in the show with that kind of behavior. It's now a safety concern for the other actors. Kyle doesn't disagree or argue, he just asks to be the one that tells Jimmy. The show gets a huge and immediate standing ovation, but none of the invited producers put an offer in the show. They worry it's too edgy for an uptown crowd, that the transfer won't go very well. The whole cast and crew go out to a bar afterwards, and Kyle tells Jimmy he's out of the show. Jimmy seems betrayed that Kyle didn't stand up for him against the call, but Kyle tells him that he's been on his side constantly for years, but he has reached a point where he can't keep helping Jimmy if Jimmy won't help himself. Good for you, Kyle. In response, Jimmy jumps on the bar and does a thank you speech to everyone. He claims he was the only person who did any work. He says Karen can't feel anything on stage or off, which is funny because she is flat on stage, and engineered his replacement. He tells Kyle's boyfriend that Kyle was cheating on him and says that Kyle stabbed him in the back the second he got the chance to, which is just blatantly not true. Anna pulls him off the bar and tells him that going after Kyle and Karen when they've been far more supportive of him than he's deserved was the wrong move. Jimmy then says that only one of them out of Karen and Kyle are in love with him, and it's not the one that he wanted. Kyle overhears. He wants to go back to talk to him and tell him that wasn't okay to say, but Karen tells him not to because Jimmy will just apologize and say the right things, and Kyle won't leave the cycle. So Kyle decides to cut Jimmy off. Bombshell's ticket sales are up. The publicity paid off. On Ivy's one night off, she ignores Derek's calls and watches HBO's Girls alone in her apartment. Queen shit. Derek and Karen both get very drunk, and she asks him to walk her home. Kyle packs up Jimmy's stuff and leaves it at Adam's place where he knows Jimmy is, and as he's walking home, we see headlights coming for him and a screeching sound and then a fade to black. I'm going to breeze through episode 14 because it's a bummer. Kyle is dead, straight up. Obviously, the entire Hit List storyline was very inspired by Rent, and now we're doing a full Jonathan Larson tribute without it being a Jonathan Larson tribute, and we've killed off Kyle. He got hit by a car and he's dead. Karen and Derek spent the night together, and after his night, Jimmy shows up at her apartment and says he wants to be with her, but when he hears Derek's voice inside, he gets hurt and he leaves. He tries to find Kyle, even goes to their apartment, but Kyle is nowhere to be found. Bombshell plans the Tony's campaign and decide they want to push Ivy for Best Leading and Lee for Best Featured, speculating that Liaisons will also opt for Best Supporting for Ivy. Jerry, without their knowledge, launched a huge ad for Bombshell and says he just did it to help Eileen. Eileen wants none of it and throws a drink in his face. Tom finally gets a call informing him that Kyle was hit by a car and didn't survive. Tom goes and informs everyone at Hit List. Jimmy, however, is not there to hear the news. Scott wants to put on the show that night, but Derek argues against it. That is until ticket holders come to the theatre anyway, even though they heard the show was cancelled as a way to pay their respects. Derek decides they should do a stage concert rendition of the show as a tribute to Kyle. We see a new number in Bombshell featuring Lee and the actress who plays young Marilyn called At Your Feet, and we also see a flashback of Tom and Kyle in Tom's apartment where Tom played him Vienna very beautifully. We learn that Tom is legally dissolving his partnership with Julia, but that he's doing it so that she's free to work on The Great Gatsby without having to worry about any legal issues with it being under their joint name. Jimmy finally shows up to the theatre and learns about Kyle's passing. He is obviously not okay, so he runs out and disappears. Karen eventually finds him sitting on a ledge at a spot he used to visit with Kyle, and after making sure that Jimmy isn't going to hurt himself, Karen says she thinks he should do the show with them that night for Kyle. She also tells him that her and Derek didn't sleep together because she's in love with Jimmy. Julia finds out that against her wishes, Scott told the stage managers to inform ticket holders that the show was indeed going on that night. Julia thinks he's pushing for it not because of it being a tribute to Kyle, but because he's scared he will lose his job if Hit List doesn't perform well. She thinks he's exploiting Kyle's death for profits. She says she will not be doing Gatsby with him. Weird to have it be a character from Rent who was close to Jonathan Larson when he passed to play this character. I don't know. It's a character, but like it just feels a little weird. Jimmy shows up and does the show. He performs a beautiful rendition of The Love I Meant to Say. Derek asks Ivy why she's been avoiding him, and she tells him that she knows they only started seeing each other again after Karen rejected him. Derek says that nothing actually happened between him and Karen, but Ivy argues that there will always be a Karen, and she officially ends things with him. Woo! Eileen sees Jerry again, and Jerry says not to worry, that he no longer will be advertising Bombshell since he won't have the money now that he is officially producing Hit List, making him Eileen's direct competition. Jimmy seemingly decides to quit drinking, and Julia arranges for Bombshell to dim its house lights for Kyle, like the long-held Broadway tradition of dimming lights for industry legends when they pass. Depression time over. Hit List has officially moved to Broadway, and the dancer who accused Derek of sexual harassment, the one that he ran into at Bombshell's opening night, is officially in the cast. She's dancing alongside My Love, My Light, Philippa Sue. Anna is struggling with the shift to the biggest stage, just like in terms of translating all the choreography and the staging. She's struggling to nail her timing when walking across the stage. But it's also when she's wearing like ridiculous fucking heels they put her character in, like they're stilts. They're basically stilts because they're going for the Lady Gaga aspect of it all. But like, yeah, it's gonna take her a little bit longer to hit a couple strides. Fucking Lindsay Mendez shows up in this episode and belts the end of an original song called Mr. and Mrs. G.I. Joe. She's appearing in a Houston and Levitt concert that they're putting on, and she's performing that song. She jokes that she'll be the only person there who hasn't won a Tony, and once again I mourn the fact that she's the only like main Merrily revival cast member who didn't win, but it's fine and I'm fine about it. It's fine. She did win in 2018 for Carousel, so still a Tony winner. Aline says that the Houston and Levitt concert they're putting on is not about the Tonys, it's about old friends getting together to celebrate. Old friends like the song from Merrily. But then she turns to Tom and says it actually is all about the Tonys and their Tony campaign. And like, yeah, obviously. Ivy and Karen run into each other in Times Square, and they're both walking to table 46. And Ivy says that things will probably get crazy as they head into award season, and she asks if they can promise each other that whatever happens, they're going to be adults about it. Karen promises her this. Jimmy, Derek, and Julia all discuss changes that they can make to Hit List because it's currently in previews and the energy is off. Like, they can feel it. They know that those reviews are going to start coming in. Jimmy wants it to be perfect before Tony nominations because he wants a Tony for Kyle in Kyle's honor. Derek suggests that because it's Anna who's been struggling, that's the issue, but everyone else agrees that she just needs time to adjust to the change. Eileen is worried that Julia is spending too much time with Hit List and that will appear odd to others, so to solidify her and Tom's public image, Eileen asks her to sing with Tom at their tribute concert. Their promotional team discuss what nominations are in talks to be for Bombshell, and the publicist mentions that there's a blind item going around about a Broadway blonde who had issues with pills off stage with an incident at a previous show, and there are rumors of her sleeping her way to the top, and there's speculations about a co-star's fiance getting involved. Ivy admits that was bad, but questions how anyone fucking knows about that. And they say, like, it doesn't matter how they know, but we just need to do a slight image rehab, like, you know, be Norma Jean off stage for a while rather than being Marilyn both on and off. Daisy, the dancer that Derek harassed, is the understudy for the diva apparently, and Derek decides to give Anna a night off to rest, considering she's been making a lot of mistakes. But as he's walking out, he tells Daisy it's been taken care of. Julia thinks that the problem with Hit List transfer is that the show now feels divided from the audience. The bigger space and the nature of the Broadway stage makes it feel less inclusive to the audience compared to the Manhattan Theatre Workshop, where there was like, you know, like the stage was just the floor, you know, those kinds of places. So Julia and Jimmy look through Carl's old notes and ideas that he had for Hit List to try and find just something they can use, and they find an idea that Kyle had to take ticket holders' phone numbers and to text them live updates throughout the show. Anna worries that Derek is going to permanently replace her as the diva, but Karen assures her that like that's not the case, and to ease Anna's nerves, Karen talks to Derek about it, and he says, no, I'm only giving her the night off, but he talks like it sounds like he may want to replace her. Karen fights it, and Derek says he's under a lot of pressure and different pressure to everyone else. Daisy then tries to talk to Karen, but Karen blows her off, which seems rude because she doesn't actually know what's going on. Ivy films a car commercial, and it's very funny to me. She goes, "A perfect model inside and out, just like me." And T-Girl, she gets a call from Tom who says that he wants to change Ivy's number for that concert like that evening, and she's now going to perform a song called Grin and Bear It. Sam tells Ivy that it's a song about a bunch of strippers. Tom has decided to change the plan of like just a few performers seeing various songs out of context because he wants to give the night a theme, and he wants it to be a Vegas strip club in the 50s and like the different performers that sees. Ivy worries that the song change will be bad for her image rehab. Someone, probably Jerry, has leaked to the press that Tom and Julia are splitting their partnership. This does not look good, and the crew are worried about the fact that Julia isn't even around to help deal with this fallout. She's off with hit list. Anna's agent discovers that Daisy was one of the dancers who accused Derek of sexual harassment and then mysteriously dropped the lawsuit. And I think that she's blackmailing Derek for the role of the diva, which she is, obviously. The man, the myth, legend himself, Lin-Manuel fucking Miranda, is at Julia and Tom's concert. We can overhear him telling people that Jonathan Groff curses like a sailor. It's a religious moment for me because I go to the church of Jonathan Groff. Tom tries to avoid him, but is caught by Lynn with his godly eyes. And the exchange is brilliant, and it goes, sorry I haven't had a chance to see Bombshell yet, but the tourists love it. Sorry, I never got the chance to see Bring It On, it just closed so fast. Yeah, well, when you don't have that sweet gratuitous nudity to keep you running. Where's Julia? Or the rumor is true. Oh, she's here. She's singing tonight. So she's probably by the bar getting that sweet tequila coverage. I'm going to tweet that. I love you. Tom calls Julia and she says that she's about to come, and Tom is freaking the fuck out because the show starts in 15 minutes. Julia apologizes but says she's trying to make the new tech work with Jimmy, and Tom thanks her for what she's doing for Kyle, but reminds her that she just needs to get to this fucking concert. I feel like the lighting is a little fucked. Oh well. They're up first now performing because they had a change in the run sheet when he changed it into a like review with a theme rather than just a concert. And Tom tells her that everyone knows they're not partners anymore. And Julia goes, well, then I don't have to sing. And Tom is really hurt by this because he just wanted one last song to sing with his best friend and his partner of 11 years. And Julia's just brushing this off. My heart breaks for him. Julia decides to stay while Jimmy runs the new hit list stuff though, which makes her late again to the show. Julia and Tom now have to go last in the show because she's not there yet, so they bump Ivy to second place. She tells Eileen that she's nervous about the contents of the song, but Eileen says it's ridiculous. She's young, she's made a couple mistakes, but she's never afraid of a song, and that's what Eileen loves about her. She's not a Norma Jean, she's a Marilyn. She performs the number, she's intoxicating. She's wearing this beautiful pink gown. It reminds me of Glinda, which makes me really happy. Karen and Anna confront Derek about whether or not he is being blackmailed, and he initially denies it, but once Anna leaves, he tells Karen alone that Daisy has something on him from last month. She came to the Bombshell opening and apologized, so they had a drink together. They saw each other a few more times after that, and Daisy saw Hit List and loved it and wanted to be in it. Derek wanted to sleep with her and couldn't talk her into it consensually, so he said she could be an understudy if they went to Broadway, and she slept with him. I actually want him to die. I'm so serious. Watching this made me shake with violent rage. Daisy filmed the entire thing, including Derek's offer, so she's now using this to get a part in the show. And Derek is mad that Karen thinks he's disgusting for this, but she's fucking right for thinking that. I hate him so much, and I hate even more that this show can't decide its stance on this. It can't decide whether or not Derek is sympathetic, whether or not he is a victim. Everyone agrees that Daisy's behavior is bad, but then this whole storyline also paints Daisy as the primary villain rather than Derek. So I don't fucking know. We see another full hit list number, a song called I'm Not Sorry, between Karen's character and the diva. It's another generic pop song. A lot of these songs I do actually like as like singular pop songs, but I do not think I would like this musical because none of them seem to progress the plot or characters in any way except for like 2 of them. But they test out the texting mechanic after the number and it works and everyone loves it. Julia finally gets her ass to her on Tom's show, and he says the song that they had planned is too upbeat for where he's taken the night because he thought that she wasn't coming. So instead, Julia gets them to do a song called The Right Regrets. What really confuses me about this is that the piano melody is what used to play between every scene, like big scene between Julia and Michael Swift in season 1. It's weird. We get a sweet little Julia and Tom montage through the song where they sing. It's a very nice sentimental moment. It's really beautiful. It turns out that Jerry wasn't the one who spilt the news about Julia and Tom dissolving their partnership. It was actually Eileen, so they could frame the concert as a farewell event. so that they could sway voters, and it worked. Derek officially fires Anna because Jerry loved Daisy as the diva. Karen and Anna, I keep going between Anna and Anna, I can't remember what one it is, and it's just interchangeable in my mind. They think Derek should stand up to Daisy, and I'm once again wondering like what the fuck we're doing here with this story. Anna goes up to Ivy and Sam at a bar and asks if Derek fired Ivy when Ivy stopped sleeping with him. Ivy and Sam are rightfully very taken aback by that phrasing, and Anna says that she heard from Karen that Derek tried to sleep with her, but Karen said no, and then Ivy did sleep with him and got the part. Ivy understandably is very pissed about this, so Ivy goes up to Karen and tells Karen that she has no right to tell people that she slept with someone to get a part, which is true. Karen goes, well, Anna's my best friend and everyone already knows. But like the fact Ivy had a relationship with Derek isn't the issue, Karen. It's the fact that you're telling people she was sleeping with him specifically to get a role. Ivy goes, you play this naive, just got off the bus routine to get exactly what you want, but deep down, you're just as calculating as the next person. And she's right. Ivy then says she's glad that Hitless made it to Broadway that season because the only thing better than getting a Tony will be beating Karen for it. Fuck yeah, let's go. Ivy then gets a fucking phone call from her doctor who tells her she's goddamn pregnant. Ivy sings about her blues about being pregnant, and we get a montage of other people's problems too. Anna is searching for a new job. Eileen's upset that Bombshell got 10 Outer Critic nominations when Hitless got 11. We focus back on Ivy and the fact that she is throwing up between Don't Forget Me and The Curtain Call. Tom is anxiously waiting to see the results of the Critics' Choice Awards, believing that his chances at a Best Director nomination at the Tonys is like directly tied to whether or not he wins a Critics' Choice Award. So he continues checking his phone even during a performance of a revival show that he's attending, like just in the audience with Eileen and Agnes. He drops his phone and majorly bothers the patron sitting behind him. He then loudly declares that he won the award. The guy behind him has a rightful dig at him about theatre etiquette. Tom didn't just win though. He tied with Derek for Hit List. They both won the award. Ivy is out with Jessica, Bobby and Sam in, you fucking guessed it, Times Square, because they always do that. And they're discussing that Ivy lost the Critics' Choice Award to Karen. Sam tells her that awards don't matter, and Ivy goes, you're only just saying that because you won one and for a tiny role. She immediately profusely apologizes, saying that she hasn't been feeling well lately, and Bobby and Jessica speculate that maybe she's relapsed. Turns out the patron that Tom was bothering during the revival was Patrick Dillon, who was a famous actor. Eileen and Agnes say he's the reason they invented the term glass closet, insinuating that he's gay, for anyone who doesn't know. But he's also on the Tony nominating board, so the fact that Tom pissed him off is not good. Eileen stresses that Bombshell only won 2 awards out of their nominations, and Hit List sweeps the rest. Anna is starting a wrongful termination lawsuit against Derek and Jerry Ryan Productions, citing that Derek promised the role to Daisy if she slept with him. Derek says he'll take care of it, and by that he means he'll talk to Karen and ask her to stop Anna. Karen says she won't do that, and Derek says Anna will ruin her own career in the process then, and oh my god, I hate him so much. I actually kind of want to cry a little bit. Ivy tries to meet with Derek to talk to him because she's pregnant with his kid. He blows her off. We see her at the doctor, and she's apparently deciding what she wants to do about the pregnancy. Tom tells Eileen that he's fixed things with Patrick. He found his address and sent over a very expensive bottle of wine and an apology note. But Eileen notes that there are strict rules about giving gifts to people on the nominating committee, so Tom should cancel the order pronto in case Patrick uses it to get him disqualified from nominations. Karen tells Daisy that she needs to quit the show and to find an excuse and get out so this doesn't have to get any uglier. She asks if Daisy is proud of how she got the role, and Daisy says that Karen may not have slept with the director, but she played the game too. I hate this. Like, yes, blackmailing is wrong, but Daisy is a victim of sexual harassment at multiple points. Why are we acting like that isn't also true? The writers of the show clearly do not have the nuance to talk about this topic, and it's specifically the nuances involved with being a victim and then blackmailing the abuser. Like, it's complicated and it's tricky, and the show is just not equipped to tackle that topic. Daisy says that after 10 years in the industry of desperate attempts to make it, when you know you're as good as everyone around you, you just stop caring about being a good person. You just do what it takes. Karen points out that Anna has been in the industry for a long time and has paid her dues, and Daisy took that opportunity from her. Daisy said that she's sorry about that and that's not her fault, it's Derek's, and all Daisy did was say yes. Karen goes, and that was your choice, but no, not exactly. Michael Riedel, the reporter, is interviewing Jimmy, and Jimmy is trying to keep it focused on Kyle and his legacy, but Michael keeps redirecting the conversation to points he can create drama out of, as shitty tabloids do. Jimmy says that Karen left Bombshell, where she was imitating an icon, to join Hit List, where she's creating an icon instead. And Rydell takes that to mean Jimmy thinks Ivy is just imitating an icon in Bombshell, clearly twisting his words. Rydell says he wants to talk about Julia Houston and how there are rumors that she was so close with Kyle that she must be responsible for a lot of the work. Karen takes the question because Jimmy is clearly like frothing with rage, understandably, and says that all of Hit List was Kyle's vision. It's Kyle's statement to the world, and while Julia is a friend to the show, those rumors are just blatantly incorrect. Michael says off the record that someone should tell Julia to stop talking about Kyle so much because it's giving the wrong impression. Karen mentions that there's no way Julia would take any credit. She's sensitive to keeping script doctors behind the scenes, considering she had her own dramaturg on Bombshell. Tom goes to Peter's apartment and tries to take back the wine, but gets caught by the apartment security. Peter then comes down, and Tom explains to him that he got him the wine as an apology, but then didn't realize it was against the rules, so he wants to take it back now so they can forget that it ever happened. And they end up playing tug of war with the wine, and it smashes all over the floor and all over Peter's very expensive shoes and pants. Peter asks Tom to just please leave him alone. So fair. Sam escorts Ivy at stage door because he wanted to check in on her, and Hit List gets out first, and so they meet a fan who says they can't believe Hit List won so many Critics' Choice Awards when they think Bombshell is so much better. I know I recognized this actress when I saw her, and I googled it, and it turns out it's fucking Ashlee, aka the original Heather Duke from Heathers of Broadway, which love. She tells Ivy that Karen shouldn't have beat her, and Ivy brushes it off and says Hit List is a wonderful show and Karen is wonderful in it. The PR training kicked in, we love it. But then someone else, though, brings up that Karen and Jimmy supposedly said Ivy was just doing an imitation and that Bombshell isn't original. Ivy then goes, well, the only reason Hit List made it to Broadway is because Kyle Bishop died, and someone was filming her say that. Sam and everyone else watches in horror. Ivy's fucked. Anna is auditioning for the tour of Once, which love. The casting people love her. They mentioned that she's even better than Derek was promised, mentioning that he pushed pretty hard for them to bring her in. Ivy confides in Sam that she is pregnant and that she doesn't want to tell Derek. Sam says he has a right to know as the father, and Ivy goes, right now he's just a guy I slept with. I'll decide if he's a father. Fuck yeah. Fuck yeah. At the Critics' Choice Winners' Lunch, Jimmy and Karen avoid Ivy, understandably, and everyone there stares absolute daggers at her. Only a bartender is on her side, and he shows her online forums of people agreeing with her and insulting Hit List as a show. Obviously, that's not comforting to her. She runs into Derek too, who tells her she looks uncharacteristically radiant. And when Ivy asks if they can meet up again later to talk, he says he'd love that. During their thank you speeches, Tom thanks Derek primarily and uses his speech to acknowledge how much he learned from Derek and how Tom's success was so inspired by Derek's work on Bombshell. Ivy tries to apologize to Jimmy, and Julia and Tom walk over to check that things are okay, and Jimmy says that Ivy and Julia are ruining Kyle's chances at being recognized. And Julia points out that she has done everything in her power to support Hit List and honor Kyle's memory. Jimmy says that Julia should claim she didn't work on Hit List at all, and Tom says that's a lie. Jimmy threatens to reveal that Julia had a dramaturg on Bombshell in retaliation. Karen and Derek and even Eileen join in the conversation, and literally everyone is against Jimmy doing this. Karen makes Jimmy take a night off from Hit List as he's getting really, really sick, so he watches from the audience to see the legacy that he and Kyle have created. Eileen decides she needs to get out of town for a bit, realizing that her life has to be about more than just Bombshell. And Jimmy says that being in the audience, he really felt Kyle. Karen says, awards or not, people know Kyle's name. Peter goes to see Bombshell, and Tom asks him what he thought. He says that he's going to vote with his heart and that Tom has his support. Tom thanks him for giving him more than a fair shot. Peter says that Tom is very talented, but he also loved how gracious he was to Derek at the Critics' Choice lunch. Julia says that artists shouldn't feel ashamed helping each other, and they shouldn't always be in competition either. She says she's going to be honest about what she did for Hit List and about what Peter did for Bombshell. Jimmy apologizes to her. Anna tells Derek that he's going to get away with it. She's having a lawyer rescind the letter, and she's taking the Once tour. Derek says he's sorry for how everything turns out, and Anna says that he's not, because if he was, he wouldn't do it again and again. Anna says that the only way he would have stopped was if Anna had exposed him, and she's going to find that very hard for her to live with. It's very heartbreaking because you understand Anna not wanting to jeopardize her career in a way that she absolutely would be jeopardizing it if she exposed him, but God, I also don't want Derek to fucking get away with it. Ivy was there and heard it all though, and Ivy says she was going to tell him something really important, but she's glad that they got there first, because you've never done the right thing, Derek, and you never will. upwards, she says. The nominations are coming out for the Tonys. Julia, Tom, and Ivy watch together, and Anna watches with Karen and Jimmy. The presenters are Tony winner Christine Ebersole, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, and vocal adrenaline coach Cheyenne Jackson. Featured actress is up first, and Lee gets nominated for Bombshell, and Ivy gets nominated for Dangerous Liaisons too. Daisy also gets a nomination. Derek gets nominated for Best Choreography for both Hit List and Bombshell. Kyle gets nominated for Best Book of a Musical. So does Julia, of course. Bombshell and Hit List both get original score nominations, and Tom gets a Best Director nomination. Unfortunately, so does Derek. They say that Derek is the second person in history to get 3 nominations in 1 year, the first being Bob Fosse. Did you get it? Karen gets nominated for Best Leading Actress, and there's a moment where it looks like Ivy didn't get nominated, but the presenter finishes the list, and there is silence until they notice they missed one, and it turns out Ivy is indeed nominated fucking twice. Best Supporting and Best Featured. Bombshell gets 12 nominations, including Best Musical, and Hit List gets 13 nominations. Eileen tries to go see Nick, but it turns out Nick got out of prison and hadn't let Eileen know. Jimmy tells Karen that he knows he pushed Karen away when Kyle died, and that it was because he was afraid of letting someone get truly close to him. He says that seeing the show the night before made him realize that the show can live on without him, that the show stands on its own. Patrick sends Tom a bottle of wine as congratulations. Frank calls Julia, saying that he can't believe she would hire Eileen's lawyer, that it's not no-fault divorce, it was her fault, and she will pay for it. He will take her for everything she's worth. It's really out of character for Frank, and is clearly just thrown in here to create some drama before the finale, but I really don't care. During an interview about the nominations, Derek admits to all of his literal crimes. And now we have the finale of the whole darn show. We open with a cover of Under Pressure that I always think is going to be Ice Ice Baby. Julia even gets 2 lines in the song, which is cute, and Eileen gets a whole verse. That's just Derek. It's wild. It's all of the characters heading to the Marquee Theatre where the Tonys are being held. They all stand in a circle and sing at each other. Turns out it was a dream sequence, obviously, but it was very fun. I like it. We learn that the Tonys are officially in 12 hours. Tom is trying to write a speech in case Bombshell secures some wins, and Julia is trying to write a letter detailing her affair with Michael Swift after her lawyer told her that it could soften Frank's case. I forgot his name. Not his case, his anger. He might stop being so angry. And while she's explaining this, the right regrets. The little piano motif plays again. We see Lee and Ivy getting ready for the Tonys, and they're watching Lee's acceptance speech, but it is literally just Bernadette's acceptance speech from 1999. It's kind of an insane choice. She says, "Look how gracious I was," and Ivy goes, "So gracious you forgot to thank me?" Wow, it's almost because Bernadette Peters is not actually Ivy's mother. Ivy struggles to zip her dress up because she's pregnant, but Lee doesn't know that and goes, "Have you been stress eating again? Not the time to get fat, my dear." Wow, as someone who stress eats, calm it. Lee advises her that after her first Tony win, her career just skyrocketed, and Ivy admits that she was thinking of taking a break. Lee tells her that's absolutely not acceptable, that she needs to ride this momentum. Derek is holed up in his apartment in this depression pit. I don't feel sorry for him. And Karen is dropping supplies off for him and checking on him. It's not enough for him to want to crawl out of his fucking hole, though. He won't even get out of bed to get alcohol. Karen shows up to Tony performance rehearsals and learns that they're not doing Voice in a Dream like she thought they were. They're instead doing I'm Not Sorry because Jimmy doesn't want to perform. Philippa Sue gets a line of dialogue. She complains that they have to not only deal with, but now seemingly support Daisy. They look at a newspaper headline about Daisy going from victim to vixen. Karen and Ivy run into each other in the hallway of the rehearsal rooms, and we learn that Bombshell is doing Let's Be Bad. Hit List is going to look embarrassing next to Bombshell if Bombshell does Let's Be Bad and Hit List does I'm Not Sorry. Ivy asks about Derek, and Karen tells her that he hasn't left his apartment in weeks. The poor guy is facing the consequences of his own actions. Ivy mentions that the other cast members outnumber Daisy, and if they don't want to perform with her, they shouldn't have to. Again, we're phrasing Daisy like a villain, which feels weird. Jimmy still hasn't picked up his tickets for the Tonys that night, which leaves Karen worried that he's getting cold feet, so she tells him to meet her at her place and they'll go together. We see Jimmy has moved out of his apartment and he hands over his keys. Eileen finds Nick working in a restaurant or a cafe, a food place. He says he didn't tell her where he was because he didn't want to disrupt her life any more than he already has. She says he's the only stable thing in her life, and she invites him to be her date for the Tonys because win or lose, she wants him by her side. It's cute. Daisy tells Jerry that the dancers are refusing to perform with her, so Jerry says she'll do Reach for Me. the Divas solo instead. Jimmy goes around Tom and Julia's to ask Julia for a favor, but gets talking with Julia, who says she hopes sometime in the future he finds a new writing partner and is able to write again. Jimmy asks her to accept Kyle's award if he wins, but Julia says no, saying that it's Jimmy's moment and he needs to stop sabotaging himself. Ivy goes over to Derek's and he lashes out at her because he can't treat literally anyone well. He's feeling so sorry for himself. It's disgusting. Ivy says she doesn't want to be there tonight without Derek, that she knows she hurt him, but he hurt her too, but that doesn't mean she doesn't love him. Ugh. Baby, you can do so much better. I don't care if you're pregnant with this child. Find a stepdad who will step up. Julia meets up with Frank to give him the letter about the affair, but she decides she wants to tell him verbally instead. She admits that she met Michael years before Frank knew she did, and she did not sleep with him then, but she wanted to. She thought about him a lot from then on. For much of her marriage with Frank, the thought of Michael was there. And it wasn't because she didn't love him, it was because she didn't love him the right way. She tells him that he should do whatever he wants regarding the settlement. She won't refute anything. Karen is getting ready for the Tonys, and she's wearing this lilac dress. She looks beautiful. I love a lilac dress. Jimmy shows up a few minutes late, but he's there. He asks Anna why she's dressed too when he arrives, and he gives her Kyle's ticket so that she can come along to the awards with them. It's really sweet, and Jimmy answers his phone, thanking an unknown caller for giving him the night and saying that he will be there before midnight. We're now at the Tonys. When the Best Actress in a Featured Role in a Musical category is being announced, Lee asks if Ivy has practiced. And Ivy goes, my speech? No, I'm not winning. And Lee goes, no, you're losing face when I win. Lilia's White is announcing, which made me emotional because she was my homies when I saw Hadestown on Broadway. When the nominees are announced and they have their little on-camera moment, Ivy looks so nervous and scared, and that's my baby. When Daisy's name is announced, only then does she realize that Anna is sitting in the row in front of her with Jimmy and Karen, and the award goes to Hit List. Jimmy, Karen, and Anna, despite being this, I'm sure, are all visibly fuming, which I find funny, because her blogs would have been active that night. Ivy goes, good thing you practiced that face, to Lee, which I found very funny. And we also learned that Daisy's win for Best Featured Actress is Hit List's 5th award of the night. The Best Book is being announced, and Julia is talking to Tom about how she thinks she may actually want Kyle to win over her, and goes, could I actually be that selfless? And Tom says, historically, no. I love Tom so much. The Tony does go to Kyle, and Jimmy immediately starts crying, and I start crying too because I'm a baby. Julia tells Tom that she's okay, but it turns out she did actually want to win it a little bit. Jimmy tells the room that Kyle would have just loved that night because he just loved Broadway. And Jimmy thanks everyone there for giving Kyle something to love his whole life. He also weirdly gives Karen a specific shout out, which feels a little odd, but sure. And the whole room gives him a standing ovation. Best Score for a Musical is now being announced, and Tom and Julia discuss how many awards Hit List has won, and Tom says that he feels like they do deserve it after the cast and crew of Bombshell spent the last year fighting like high schoolers. Julia says Jimmy deserves Best Original Score, and her and Tom deserve many cocktails with olives in them. It's sweet. They're so lost in conversation, though, that they don't notice when their names are called as the winners. They won the Tony winners together, and we learn it's Bombshell's second win after they won for Best Costume Design. Julia sees Jimmy's side of stage, and Jimmy goes, it's okay, I got the one I want, as in Kyle's award, and it made me cry again. Oh my god. And now for Best Choreography, a category where Derek is nominated twice. When they announce his name, he gets a barely there smattering of applause, which is rough compared to everyone else's like house full of polite applause. This industry does not like this man, and fucking good for it. Ivy still questions how he could miss this. Derek wins for Hit List specifically. Bobby says that that's bad for Bombshell, as they've now lost 6 awards. I think it's bullshit that Hit List won Best Choreo over Bombshell, honestly. But Derek does make a surprise appearance. He begins by thanking Tony voters for judging the work rather than the person behind it, which good, at least he knows he's awful, I fucking guess. And then he dedicated it to someone he loves, Ivy, who convinced him to come that night. Ivy tries to talk to Derek about his speech after the Bombshell performance, but after learning that Daisy won for Best Featured Actress, he decides to go approach Anna, Karen, and the prominent Hit List cast minus Daisy. The man is on a mission to do something. We're not privy to that. Side of stage, before Daisy's performance, Derek tells her that there's been a change of plan, and he tells her that he's taking her out. Then the Hit List performance begins. It starts with Karen singing Broadway Here I Come a cappella. Then Jimmy joins her, continuing the song. Sam and Anna join them next. It's just their voices, them stomping, clapping, snapping. Eventually the whole cast joins them, adding harmonies and more body sounds, but it's still a cappella. It's honestly incredible. It sounds beautiful. They get a standing ovation. Jimmy kisses Karen and tells her he loves her. I'm just once again questioning why we framed Daisy as the villain when Derek was the one who propositioned her and promised her a role in exchange for sex in the first place. Patrick finds Julia and Tom to congratulate them on their win and asks them if they would ever consider writing a film. He has the rights to an amazing musical movie concept, but is struggling to find the correct team to write it. He asks if they're still a team, and they say yes. And Patrick says he'll have his assistant set up a meeting. He then smiles at Tom and says he voted for him before walking away. Julia makes Tom go after him after seeing Patrick blatantly flirt. So Tom does go after him and asks him out and kisses him. And then Patrick says that he's not gay. And now the leading actress category. Karen and Ivy are both nominated. Ivy fucking wins though. Ivy wins over Karen. Ivy wins the fucking Tony. I cry every time Ivy's a fucking Tony winner. She's frozen when they first announce it, and Eileen is fucking ecstatic for her. It's really cute. Ivy genuinely didn't think she'd win, so she thanks Tom, Julia, and Eileen first, and then she thanks Lee. She thanks her for giving her the greatest gift, which is a life in the theatre, and she says she only hopes she can give that gift to her children someday. She says there's nothing more magical to her than the moment right as the curtain goes up when the audience is sitting silently in anticipation, and she thanks the audience for coming to the show and believing as she does that there is nothing more important or special than live theatre. It makes me emotional. Eileen tells Karen that as someone who lost many times before she won, time is on her side. Don't lose heart. It's a very sweet little pep talk. And now for Best Musical, and it goes to Bombshell. Fuck yeah, fuck you, Liz. I'm kidding, sort of. Eileen calls Derek up on stage with the rest of them, and then she whispers in his ear, "Don't worry, they'll get over it." Fucking crazy to say that to an abuser. This show is insane. Ivy and Derek finally get their moment to talk though, although we don't see it. Jimmy pulls Karen outside to talk, and he finally opens up to her about his past. He admits that 5 years ago, he was at a party with a girl he barely knew, and she OD'd in front of him. And he ran, changed his name and everything, but he's turned himself in, and it turns out that the girl didn't die. She's okay now, but he's been charged with the distribution of a substance, so he's looking at 6 to 18 months behind bars. He posted bail earlier that day so he could be there for the night, but he has to go back at midnight. He says that he wanted to do whatever he had to be the person Karen saw in him. And now he can be that person. Then we have this thing where Tom is like watching a performance on TV, but it's really just a goodbye number to the show, because at this point in time they knew there was not going to be another season. So Karen and Ivy walk on stage in matching dresses behind a huge lit up sign saying Smash, like the logo of the show. It's a song about giving a big finish, which is very cute, and once again their voices sound fucking great together. Give them that big finish and leave them wanting more is a lyric in the song. We see Tom at home with his Tony, Derek and Ivy both looking happy about the pregnancy. We see Karen and Jimmy saying goodbye before he goes back to the police. We even see Julia showing up at Michael's fucking door, which I hate. It's disgusting. Eileen and Nick seem happy though, and Ivy and Karen finish the song and exit the stage. I like Jimmy and Karen's ending a lot. I hate that Derek gets a happy ending, and I hate that Ivy winds up with him after he has mistreated her this entire fucking show. I hate Julia's ending far more though. I do wish Sam and Tom had wound up together, but we don't really see any of Sam in the finale, which is a bummer, and I can still imagine that later down the track they did. So despite only running for 2 seasons, Smash has had a continued life in pop culture and the theatre industry. The finale of Smash aired on the 26th of May 2013, and before the year had even finished, stage productions were being born out of Smash. In October, it was announced that Hitless would do a one-night-only concert, but after selling out in 30 minutes, they added 2 more shows. The concert at 54 Below had cast members Jeremy Jordan, Krista Rodriguez, and Andy Mientas return, with another actress taking over Catherine McPhee's part. The concert featured hitless songs from the show, as well as incorporating numbers that were written for it but never made it into the final product, and resulted in it being a 13-song musical. The show moved around certain songs between characters to fit the narrative of Hitless itself better, as the songs from Smash were obviously used to further the Smash characters along more than the narrative of Hitless. Flash forward then to December 2014, and it's announced that Bombshell will also have a concert production put on by the Actors Fund in an effort to raise money. It was a one-night-only affair, seeing almost all cast members return to the stage, and was held in the Minskoff Theatre to a sold-out crowd. I legitimately tried to convince everyone to fly me to New York as a 13-year-old for this. In 2020, though, a recording of this concert was live streamed with a cast Q&A reunion on Zoom to further raise funds, which is really cool. And my favorite piece of lore about this concert was held the day after Christian Bale won a Tony. And backstage, Will Chase told Leslie Odom Jr. to pass on the role of Aaron Burr to do a television show instead, because he told Leslie he'd make no money in a musical about Alexander Hamilton. After the insanely successful Bombshell concert, it was announced that Bombshell would be adapted for Broadway. After many years, it was still in development, and one of the lead producers passed away in 2018. It seemed to just stop it dead in its tracks. But in 2020, it was announced that Smash itself, rather than Bombshell, would indeed be adapted for a Broadway show. The first read-through of it took place in 2022 with Megan Hilty involved, and Steven Spielberg himself was there as well. There was then an industry reading in 2023 with Robin Herder playing Ivy Lynn, and the show continued production until 2024 when a 6-week workshop was put on in February. Robin played Ivy once again, and Krista Rodriguez returned to the Smash universe. All the cast members there were Alex fucking Brightman, JJ Neiman, and many others, as well as Jennifer Hudson being a producer. The show did transfer and open on Broadway to not great reviews, unfortunately. It was a limited show in 2025 on Broadway. My script has nothing about this. This was written in 2024. Yeah, it closed pretty soon. I'm a bit gutted I never saw it. The cast recording exists. It's fine. Someday I'll watch a bootleg and have a proper opinion on it. But the fact that it had enough prominence culturally from this niche little TV show to have a Broadway adaptation get to fucking Broadway is crazy and a massive achievement. And no matter what, Smash somehow lives on, which is cool. Anyway, that's my yap about Smash done. I'm Ashlee Taylor. Subscribe if you like. All my socials will be linked below. I have a Patreon. I have things. Love y'all.